Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Champ League podcast/show, episode number 2. This is, well, a little bit delayed. I do apologize for that one. I was trying to get into this as quickly as possible, but unfortunately, we do not have our producer this week, so this episode's going to be a little bit scuffed. I'm personally broadcasting it, and I apologize for all of the scuffness, but the good thing is, we're here, we're ready to start this one up, and I've got some great co-hosts with me here today, Taco, Vaudable, and our special guest, Pyro J. Pyro, you're our first guest on the show. How you feeling, my guy?
Oh, all right. I mean, putting the best at first, usually you leave them for last, Bass, but that is fine with me. I'm happy to share my pride. The best in the West is out here, and I'm already repping them on the team, baby.
That's not a West team.
Carnegie Mellon.
You just talked about West and then showed an East team.
is ours.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
My talk. Okay, come on.
I'm glad you're here, but so far you've done a bad job representing the West, considering you're repping CMU. But good thing is that
just wait till my rankings.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we're looking for. Taco, Vaude, how you guys doing today? Vaude, you ready for the show?
I'm ready for the show and for more West slander. It's going to be great.
Lovely. Taco, you and I have had some West slander this week after CRL Falls. You and I, some conversations about some of the teams that we were prior a little bit enthusiastic about.
I mean, yeah, West also does deserve some slander. I mean, we've had some shenanigans that we will and will not talk about. But at the first thing, I got to throw a little bit of shade to Oregon for not setting their alarms. It's not even showing up for qualifiers. The top seed in the entire pool, and they're just like, nope.
I legitimately, I do not understand that one. Like, that hurts my brain a little bit, if I'm being real. Like, looking at that, going, oh, yeah. You guys have what is probably the easiest group of anybody in the West, and you tossed it. Like, what happened there? Granted, I mean, I don't think any of us really expected UL to be the sleeper that we did, so it's a little bit different, but, like...
Well...
I mean, you got something to say about you Lafayette? Like...
I mean, they're no longer a team in the qualifier currently based on them not having an eligible player, like them having an ineligible player competing with them. So now there's going to be 9 pools for the upcoming qualifier for the Western Conference instead of the 8 that there typically would be. It's not going to be MST that are getting that spot.
Yeah.
There's still going to be people having to qualify based on their seeding and everything else. But yeah, I mean, I was rooting for the Raging Cajuns, and then they just had some ineligibility problems go on there, and now they're going to have to try and qualify again.
The good thing is that they still do have a chance to qualify just because they were ineligible based on one of their players in the first one. They do get a second chance this time. So, you know what? Before we get any further into theorizing, why don't we actually get into what has happened? So, good thing is I have grabbed all of the stats for the last couple of weeks, including starting with East. So this was the East results, pools 1 through 4. The qualifying teams were Fisher, West Virginia, Northwood Blue. Oh, I got to put this up. Qualifying teams, Northwood Blue and Northwood White. These were all teams that we had picked going through. I don't really think there's a surprise out of any of these teams. I was going to say the closest surprise is Nichols at the top. Like,
they got a series win against Fisher College. They almost did it before then, too, going to 5 games, and they're looking pretty good against... I think Fisher was the number 1 seeded team going into the Eastern Conference after placing the highest, making it all the way to the Grand Finals for Worlds. I mean, I put them number 1 on my power rankings before, but we'll talk about power rankings a little bit later.
I mean, it's a bold call considering that you had them, and then they did lose to an unranked team.
They lost once,
yeah, they lost once, but I mean, not too surprising. Taco, you talked a lot about this week. Nichols, I think, heavily underrated and kind of underseeded coming into this.
Yeah, I got a little sassy on Twitter after Qual 1 because I made a tweet a while back being like, man, we have so many crazy teams in East. And then I named off like the usual suspects of like, hey, we have WVUs coming into Summer Series. We also have Zanil coming to Northwood Blue. And then we also have like a revamped kind of Northwood White team. And then also Nichols College is a cool lineup now with like Pyros Polar and K Frost. And we got a couple comments that were like, is that last one like really like the same level? And even though it's not maybe the same level, I was like, this is still a very good team and you should watch out for it. And then bang, first qual, they almost knock off a Worlds finalist. Granted, this is also conflicting with the term that I talked about last week on the podcast where it was like, hey, Fisher, like, I love you, but like, I don't know what Fisher is going to show up. Are you going to be like Collegiate World Finals Fisher, or are you going to be like league play qual where you're kind of just like mailing it in? And I don't really know, but I'd have to think that they had to take their turn their game faces on when they lost that first best of 5 in the finals, thinking, oh, wait, okay, no, we actually really need to lock in here, or else this is going to be a little embarrassing.
They should have locked in after the initial one, because again, in the upper bracket final there, they also went to 5 with Nichols, so you would think coming into the second one, they'd go, yeah, this is a solid team, we can't slip up, and then they do slip up immediately, so I don't know, like, it's kind of crazy. Nichols, I will say, did also take an off-season win, or an outside CRL win in another tournament recently, so that's pretty big for them. So they seem to have the abilities. I wonder if they're going to crack anybody's top 10 here, but again, without them qualifying, it's going to be rather interesting.
Let's not talk about teams that didn't that make top 10.
Well, is there a team here that you're sad about?
But listen, we're talking about Game 5 victories. We're talking a lot about Fisher. Let's also talk about Northwood White, because you could argue that they qualified by the skin of their teeth. Did they lose the series? No. But they went to Game 5 with ISU not once, but twice. Now, does credit need to be given to ISU for being a really good team? And for me, a surefire qual too? Yeah. But this is still, Northwood White, you're supposed to be this elite team that people have like at least top 6. And now we're like, oh, that was close.
Yeah, I will say ISU feels like that team that is just outside like top 10 nationwide at this point, or I guess CRL wide at this point, but they're just not quite there yet. So I don't know what it is. They keep getting wins over teams that are somewhere within our top 10, but they are just not actually getting into it. Again, partially because they didn't qual this week. I don't think I can put them in a top 10 at this point.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Once they qual, I'm interested to see what happens. And again, I do think, I agree with you, that's a qual 2 team for sure. Like, in every capacity, I think ISU make it through. We did have other teams that also made it through as well. This is just for the first half of the East teams. We also have, look at this, look how good I am at graphics. Wow. I did not spend 4 hours making the most jank graphics of all time. Definitely not the reason we are late. Pools 5, 6, 7, and 8. Yeah, you're lying, but I appreciate you saying that. Pools 5, 6, 7, and 8. We got Kennesaw, Ole Miss, Akron Blue, and St. Clair Gold. Now, this is where the surprise teams start to come in. Kennesaw getting 2 victories in a row to bracket reset win against Ball State. St. Clair taking down a Stockton, which we all thought was revitalized and a surefire guarantee at this point. And then Akron Blue. We said last week that one of the 2 Akron teams was going to make it. We pretty much all thought it was going to be Gold. Props to Blue. They looked very good. Like, really
easier
good.
Bracket, to be fair, though. They were higher seeded, had their own bracket. They were the number 1 seed out of that group. But they did look really good, and that's what you kind of expect from the Blue team. Now they're in the form that we were hoping to see during Summer Series. We're seeing it here during Quals. Got to see if they can do that as well in League play as well.
I'll just take partial credit. I feel like we got previews in there, but then also I think the entire show can take credit for the fact that I think we kind of slighted Akron Blue last week on rankings.
We totally did.
I'm just not seeing that out of you guys. Yeah, not only do they qual, but they do it over Fisher Friends. I hosted on last Thursday and Friday the kind of preseason tournament with Nola Flight and colleagues. Shout out to them.
It's a good time.
And Fisher and Friends and Akron Blue, they actually went to Game 7, and Fisher and Friends beat them in that game. So it was like just like a little bit of a revenge where I'm like, oh, that's a tough one. Oh yeah, they go the distance, and then they just were able to conquer them this time. Not even going to 5 in that grand final. I mean, it's
Davenport also beat them.
Come back from them. Yeah, I mean, Davenport is also their sleeper team. I wouldn't necessarily put them in like the same echelon of like where I place probably Nichols as like a dark horse team where people are underestimated, but they're definitely making deep runs and certainly not to be underestimated. If teams come in being like, I don't know this squad, they're not a regular name, they're definitely going to get dusted. They need to be careful about that.
I think there's a lot of teams like that this year where it's like if you come in and try to underestimate, it's just going to be a problem. There's no sleeper teams to the degree like last year where it's like, oh, they have to have a peaking run to make it through. If you play bad against any of the standard teams that are in here, you're missing a CRL call. And honestly, I kind of feel like that's part of what we were seeing for Fisher Friends. They did eventually start to pick it up, but again, you lose to Davenport, go to lower bracket, not still feeling yourself, eventually do get to Akron Blue, but Akron's already been warmed up and playing at a consistent level. It's kind of hard to stop a rolling ball downhill. It's the inertia that just kind of carries them straight through. So I don't know. I kind of feel like a lot of the teams that did do well overall were just consistent throughout the day, which is kind of funny when we say that because West consistency was not a thing. That was very. Yeah. You know what?
The Western Conference.
Yeah. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. No.
One thing. No. One thing right before that is the Ole Miss bracket. To clarify for everyone, people are like, oh, Ole Miss 3-0, 3-0, 3-0. I casted the Ole Miss Akron Gold in the beginning in that quarter in the bracket final, and Gold is getting slapped around. And I'm thinking, okay, it's just
Ole
Ole
Miss
Miss.
didn't drop a
Ole Miss
single
is at the
game,
top.
yeah.
They're incredible. But I also casted that qual match, that grand final. That is still a 3-0. Every single game was a 1-goal game or an overtime. So
Yeah,
it was
okay.
like if you watch that back, it's still a VOD you can watch on my Twitch or something if you want to like be able to check back on that game. Do not look at that 3-0 and think, well, Akron just got washed in that one. They were like this close on that.
I'm not looking at the 3-0. I'm looking at the 6-0. Like at that point, I
Yeah.
don't care how much they're winning by.
I don't know,
have
man.
to say it because I wasn't there in the last show. I'm the special guest, so I'm the only one that gets to rail you guys. We saw Akron Gold in a lot of top 10s, and they got 6-0 to
mine.
get knocked
Not
out.
mine.
So
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
what you
yeah.
expected out of a top 10 team to be 0-6 in this qual? Really?
I mean, I mean,
against my team that I ranked like 3rd. So I mean, at the end of the day, like I'm still correct, Pyro. You get out of here.
I mean, I also had I watched the Ole Miss versus Akron one on my channel for the semifinals or the upper bracket final that they have as well. And that also was very similar, close games. But Ole Miss, when they're on, I continue to say the same thing. Ole Miss has the potential to have the best offense in the entire league. They are so good on their front third. If they clean up their defense, they're surefire going to be a team going to CRL Worlds. But they need to clean up their defense. And unfortunately, they're playing, well, I guess fortunately for them, they played a team that in my mind doesn't have necessarily a stronger offense or defense. They're just well-rounded in that Akron team. But if you don't have an absurdly good defense against Ole Miss, they're going to work you every time. So, not too surprising to see that result. I do think that we're going to still see an Akron that do better and perform well in the second qual. But we're going to have to see. Either way, we can also move on to the West quals as well. We also have our first 4 qualifying West teams: St. Edwards, Columbia, Maryville, and Boise State. Again, none of these are really unexpected.
Big except St. Edwards, because they were trolling apparently and dropped the game super early to UBC Gold. As you can see, they had to not drop a game in the lower bracket and then didn't drop a game since then. So
they were great. I mean, again, it sucks they lose to UBC because now everybody's going to look at this team and go, wow, you guys are vulnerable, very vulnerable. But it was a best of 3. And in a best of 3, you never really know what happens because a team can kind of just fall flat on their face initially and then not really take it seriously until it's too late when a team's playing well. And I honestly think that's what it was. St. Edwards come in and go, it's West team, we're not going to lose. And then they do. And then they just literally clean up. And again, it's not like they cleaned up and were like, okay, here's a free run. They were against CSU in the finals. That's a solid team. Maybe not St. Edwards level, but that's a solid enough team to where them 6-0ing them is pretty significant in my mind.
Also, ping's probably a thing because like Vancouver and Texas are on the opposite sides of the West Coast.
The West Coast, that's a bold call calling West Coast Texas, but
I mean,
the
like
West.
the West, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's bordering water. It's basically
yeah. It's coast. It is a coast. Everything else here feels pretty standard. I will say Boise 3-0ing Kansas and Long Beach and just not dropping a game their entire
Didn't
bracket.
play with Preston, by the way.
Preston.
So they played with Gil that time, and they looked really rough when they were playing with Preston during the Colleague Nullify and Danger Taco tournament that went on right after the episode that we had previously. Because if we had the episode after that tournament, I feel like a lot of our rankings would have been completely different. But that is what it is.
I still hate that we didn't get the full roster because in my eyes, this Boise team, like they knew that Woozy and Preston were joining Dirtho before last season even ended. Like those guys were hanging out with each other at Worlds when I saw them and everything. Like to me, this should be one of the most like practiced and well-prepped new teams that was formed for this upcoming season. So like, I just wanted to see the team play in qualifier and now that couldn't happen. So like Boise to me are still very strong team in the West. I don't think anyone's doubting that, but when are we just going to see like starting roster play?
I will say there was a conversation last year. I know, Pyro, you and I got to go to the Boise campus and do a LAN there, and it was really interesting to talk to the teams as they were talking a little bit about how, you have to earn your spot. They were very realistic that it's like the way Doc has it set up there is that no one's a guaranteed team on. Preston, I know Preston did play during qual.
Apparently Preston did play. He said in the chat. So Liquipedia was wrong. That's on us.
I will say I was going to mention this because I did stream their series against Minnesota and Preston was clapping. It was
Well,
very
actually, Preston, what's your source on that? Can
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
Preston,
Yeah,
are you
Are you
sure about
100%
that?
sure you played?
Actually, I see
Because
Spade. I see Spade in here. Spade, you were on the other side, so you have to verify. It doesn't count if Preston
he's
does,
much
'cause
more
he can just
valid
lie.
of a
Yeah,
source
yeah, yeah,
than Preston.
Actually, though, Boise looked good. Boise definitely looked like they have found their form, and I'm hoping that they keep their form. The big concern we all had during summer series was their defense, and they found a lot better rotation in my mind. They were a lot more quick on their transitions. They still had a two-spear, just kind of offense that did well. I just want to see some more adjustments. St. Edwards, Columbia, and Maryville, though, pretty standard across the board. Maryville dropping a couple games has me a bit nervous, but again, they didn't lose, so I can't read too much into that. I don't think really anybody can at this point. But again, not the only West results that we have. We also have West Part 2 with a couple of teams. Also, you will notice I forgot some of the logos as I drew the LCU one live on stream and then didn't finish it before the series started. So I just went, all right, here's the bird from their logo. And then Lafayette, I'm going to be real, I ran out of time and went, we're just putting in some text. So hopefully this is good enough. But again, not too unstandard results. I'll give some credit where it is due to a couple of different teams here that definitely stepped up in a big way. UNLV, I think a lot of us thought was not going to be a huge contender this year. Wins over both Dragonis and getting games off of OC. I got to give them some credit. I think UNLV might actually be able to run it back this year despite having a completely, well, not completely, but more or less a completely new roster.
It's going to be interesting to see, to say the least. I mean, seeing Columbia Silver make it in is always nice. OC Eagles, I mean, we expected good things from them. LCU, the tweet, I think Taco posted in our little group chat, is like, they said, oh, I qualified with this person and our GC1 friend.
Oh
Didn't
my
even
God,
tag
that
them. They didn't have a
wild.
Twitter or anything. 2 rank X players at a GC1 make it into West. I mean, that's why West is the Western Conference. And we talked about before, but if you missed it, UL at Lafayette actually didn't make it in because they had an ineligible player. So there is going to be 9 pools, 9 qualifying teams for the Western Conference, this upcoming one on Sunday, I think it is, for the second qualifier for CRL. So you didn't really need to make the logo bass because they didn't make it in.
Gosh, well, I mean, they still couldn't make it again, I will say.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's going to be a struggle for them without a full roster, as I do think the roster they had prior was very solid. But again, I know West is not necessarily the strength that East is, but I do feel like with Dragonis still in this one, with with Borrego still in this one, Oregon didn't even play. Like, there's a couple of teams that I feel like are going to cause some problems here, and UL getting seeded like they did the first time, it's going to be difficult for them to repeat that performance. Despite the fact that we had some interesting info. Our boy Zeta was out there telling us that every single CRL, there's at least one 20th seed, as in like from 20th to 29th seed, that quals somewhere in there. UL was 24 and qualified, so even if they don't qual, they already have completed, the CRL bingo, I guess. I don't know what they exactly call it, but
Now they got to do it again, Bass.
Yeah,
it doesn't count.
Yeah. Look, I just want to
Challenge
give them some
mode.
credit. I want to give them at least a little bit of credit. Like,
No,
they did well.
We appreciate
like,
Zeta.
Again, it is also, I do want to point out, though, Pool 8 is also the pool that Oregon did not play in. They DQ'd from. So technically, it's a win without the highest seed even represented within the pool. So
Yeah, fraud pool for real. I mean, it's tough whenever the top seed doesn't show up. But that's also, if anyone knows Oregon from all the times in CRL, that's a team that does not play any of their league play games when they do make it in until like the last week. So they're like 1-0 for like weeks and weeks and weeks. While everyone else is like 6 and 7. So they take some time, and maybe they just took too much time on quals.
Maybe that's like. Sorry to cut you off, Taka. Maybe that's like the true collegiate team, though. Like, procrastination is the
100%.
true sport of the
Okay, I
league
see.
college, right? So they're doing it right for all things.
Yeah, they
that
forgot
I'm
the due
doing
date. They asked for an extension, and now they're going to get it on Sunday.
They do
Oregon
get an
just didn't show
extension.
up to
They got
class.
it.
That's all it was.
1 week extension, and hopefully they'll be able to return. Oregon's been a staple team within the West for a while. They've been familiar faces year after year after year. So, again, hopeful that they return. No guarantees at this point. West is going to be rather interesting, but that's the teams that have qualified here. Again, just to kind of quick recap, we're going to go in reverse. OC Eagles, Columbia Silver. So that's the B team that Samba joined on. Good wins for them over Dallas and GCU. And then we look at the other West teams that qualified. St. Edwards, Columbia College. Again, this is their main squad. Maryville and Boise. No surprises there. Look over to the surprise bracket, I will say. Kennesaw State, Ole Miss, Akron Blue, St. Clair Gold. I would say 3 out of the 4 of these were potential to win. We thought they'd make it in, but first qual, good on them. And then finally, our last 4 teams, which are Fisher College, West Virginia, Northwood Blue, and Northwood White. And, like we said, not that surprising. I think overall quals were relatively standard. A couple of big teams make it in here or there, but I don't know. That was. I feel like quals were pretty standard this time, like in comparison to maybe some other CRL quals we have had in the past.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with what was going on. West looking a bit stronger than it typically does too with some teams, but
Yeah.
also I feel like a lot of the middle of the pack teams for the West Conference, they had people graduate or move away or different things of that sort. I mean, this is the first time I think we have Columbia having 2 teams, so that's big for them. We'll see if anyone else gets a second team in or not, or gets their first team in. I mean, some good looks we saw from like Kansas were looking pretty good. SDSU, CSU got pretty close too. UNLV, even without having their star player who's now on St. Edward's, still doing pretty good. Apparently, they have an SSL and soccer player Phil, I think it is, or something like that.
Soccer lover
I got to
Phil.
watch that guy.
Soccer
Yeah,
lover
soccer
Phil,
lover
yeah.
Phil. He claimed he was 2,200 and just like very similar to what I remember us talking about Taco Stash last year, where it was just rank grinder who we knew was good, but he never really had competitive play. Dude is confident in them being able to make it back. And again, they still do have Garen. I feel like we can't underestimate Garen. Garen's very good at the game, like very solid. So.
My favorite resume line item is whenever we would do like bundle bash. For those of you guys who are not aware of that, something that's been hosted on this channel. Basically, you have 16 pros. They all draft 2 collegiate players. Lion Blaze is typically put in as a pro, so he's a captain. And continuously, when he has the first pick, he's like Garen. Out of every single player in collegiate, he's like, because he knows he's just that solid. And he's like, I know how you play. I know how good you are. So I'm just going to draft you. And some people are like, strange. I would have gone with like one of the more like high profile players on like those other teams. But nope, you just trust Garen. And then what do you know? He gets into the grand finals like every single time.
Garen's good.
There we go.
Garen's very solid. Also, Pyro, I do have a full cam for you. I just want to point out that this can be accessed.
Hey, one thing we didn't talk about were like surprises in the pools, like of people who didn't perform as well, like Algonquin, maybe.
Oh yeah,
Do we want to talk about Gonk?
We could. I mean, this is a team that like really surprised people in summer series, right? Like took wins that weren't as expected, and everyone's like, all right, Algonquin, let's keep our eyes on them. And then they didn't really like having the spotlight on them.
That's very true. We also didn't see UDM make it in or Valleyfield. They were also in the same pool and had to play each other at one point. So that's the thing. So maybe they'll be able to make it in later on. St. Clair Saints Green. I mean, that's the team that has the most European players out of any roster that are playing in CRL. So hopefully they can make it in maybe to prove that EU's still really good. But it is what it is. And I'm excited to see what these power rankings are like for the most part. Because I know mine have been heavily adjusted. And I know people might not agree with mine.
There's I will say this week, unfortunately, I had to look at the power rankings ahead of time because I had to make the graphics for them, so I wasn't able to just hand it over to our producer and have him, fill everything out. There's a lot of parity this week. There's a lot of us who matched up and had power rankings that were the same, and then there's also a lot of times where somebody has a power ranking that's like at the bottom of the list, where everybody else has them on a completely other plane. Like there's so much. You know what? Why don't we get into it? We're just about ready. Let's actually get this one started up here because we do have. Oh wait, right. I forgot that it's the same screen. So all right. These are our power rankings. For those that do not know, we're gonna work our way up. It's going to be power ranking number 10 and then 9.
Check the Twitter if you didn't see the ones last week.
Yeah. I wish I actually had those as a PNG. I technically
Champ League show.
Oh wait, yeah. No, look. Wait. Watch. We might be bad at this, but we are also somewhat good because I can do.
I'm a link in chat.
Wait, hold up. I think I can pull these up real quick. Hold up. Can I? Wait. Y'all ain't seen this before.
Follow the Twitter.
Okay, never mind. It's not working. I give up. Anyways, so
I pinned the Twitter in the chat.
Wait, there it is. Hey, wait. Okay, and it took it away. All right. Well, it was there for a half a second.
It was there for a second.
Why did it flash it and take it away? All right, never mind. You know what? Forget it. The show is supposed to be scuffed, and you guys have learned that it indeed is. All right, so good enough. Thank you for posting the link. If you guys want to see it, it's in chat. You can click the Twitter, and it'll pull it up. More or less, the consensus was last week that we had a pretty standard top 3, which were full of WVU, St. Edward's, and Fisher. We also had a couple of additions of Northwood Blue as well as Ole Miss. So interested to see how that goes this week. Either way, let's start this one off at number 10. Number 10.
Number 10.
Akron Blue, Boise, and 2 Ball States.
Okay, Pyro. Yeah, I see you.
All right.
Also got downgraded for real.
Yeah, because they lost to KSU. They shouldn't have lost that series. They were the 5th seeded team. Yes, they had a tough bracket, but I had them at like 8 last go around. So like them not qualifying and still being on this list, I had to put them at 10. Is my thought process.
I'll double up on that. I had Ball State looking pretty good in my top 10 as well, but when you don't qual,
Right?
Actually really hard to put them on the top 10.
It was,
I was
yeah, I
expecting
almost
to
didn't.
actually be the only one to have them in my top 10. But honestly, for me, people keeping them out of their top 10 are a little bit subject to recency bias.
A little bit.
I think a little bit. And I'm not saying that not having them in your top 10 is rough because you probably have an 11, 12, whatever. But going 1 and 2 in series against Kennesaw, to me, doesn't really not make Ball State a top 10 team.
I agree, but I will fully admit they are not on my top 10. And the reason why is literally they just didn't qual. Like, I'm not
Yeah,
going to put a
that's
team
fair.
on here who hasn't
That's
qualled. Once you
fair.
have qualled, sure, you can hit back onto my top 10. I think they will be a top 10 team come week 1 or 2 of CRL. But, like, look, Kennesaw, I agree. I remember Flitz was talking about they were underrated, very underseeded. This is a team that did well last year, so there was no reason to think they would be worse this year, especially with an upgrade. But
They do have an upgrade.
yeah, their new third and Portage didn't get the same attention as a lot of the other transfers we saw. So I think heavily underrated on Kennesaw. They were already a team that were just outside my top 10, and a win over Ball State is huge. But again, I'm just not putting you in my top 10 if you're not qualified at this point. Like I tried really hard. I was even thinking about like switching out this 10 a lot, but I have to at least put Akron on my list because credit to them. We didn't think that they were necessarily going to make it. I need to see more consistency before they go anywhere but 10, in my opinion. But I think Akron deserves to be on this list, and Ball State not qualifying, just swap them out, you know?
That's fair. Taco,
Yeah.
I noticed that you've knocked Boise down a little bit
Yeah,
from
they're
where
a
you
little
had
bit
them
further.
before. You had them at 6 last time, it looks like.
I had Boise pretty high up because
Yeah.
I liked the talent. Also, them taking a W against a pretty solid Ole Miss squad in summer series. I was like, okay, that's kind of like the last time we saw them, and they're looking pretty good. And I feel like now they've had even more time to work together. Of course, the comedic timing of that was hilarious last week because I put them
Yep.
really high up, and then
Yeah.
they just got worked by Illinois State in my
ISU,
tournament. So I got to say that was pretty tough, but I still feel like Boise, at the end of the day, these power rankings are based off recent results, but it's also based off of potential. And I feel like
That's fair.
trying to balance those out, Boise gets a lot more in the potential column. I feel like because I think once they start clicking and actually find a play style that works for them, I think that's the main struggle that I'm seeing is like when it works, you're like, oh, this team is it. But then there's these moments where they're playing against specific play styles where I feel like the two play, like maybe Woozy and Preston or potentially Preston and Dortho are like not sure on their roles yet. And so there's a little bit of confusion. There's a little bit of jank. They let in weird goals. They don't finish some other ones. So I think once that's ironed out, they'll be definitely a top team in West. But overall in CRL, I think they're still very good contenders to go the distance.
Yeah, I
Fair.
agree. I think everybody knows that this team has potential. I think right now it's just kind of one of these things where we need to see them iron out a lot of the issues, and then once they're there, they could move much further up in this ranking, I would say. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you for that one. Again, potential alone, but I'm not ranking off potential right now. I'm ranking off of like how they're playing. So
That's fair. Yeah.
yeah, I think number 10 here is not any disagreements from any of us. I think we can all understand at this point. Let's see if 9 gives us anything a little bit crazier.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, that's where I put
Alright.
Akron.
Kennesaw.
Hey, Pyro, we're just copying each other.
Okay. We're gonna stay in this column right here, guys.
Yeah.
We're nice and cozy. Listen, I will say, I was like, okay, am I the only one who's gonna have Akron Blue because nobody had them on their top 10? And in fairness, nationwide, there's a
Had to
lot
give
of
them
really
respect.
good teams, so it's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you guys did have Akron Gold instead of Akron Blue, but yeah, we saw what happened. But that's fine. We already talked about that. I think they deserve their spot after qualifying. I think they took down Fisher Friends, which of course no one really knew how that match would go. So yeah, I think they earned their spot here.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree on what you're saying there, Pyro. Definitely didn't copy your notes on this one.
I cannot wait to see how you guys, the reactions you two will have for your list. Your lists are wild. Anyways, not the point.
Oh boy.
Kennesaw, a little low, I feel like, but I guess
That's what I would think,
first
yeah.
entrance at 9, I think is fair. I don't think
That is fair.
I don't think that's too far off. I get that. Like,
Kennesaw, at the end of the day, is a team that I had been able to preview a bit because a little bit before quals, I was able to have Par actually hit me up and say, hey, he's played with Trevor. He's friends with Trevor on Akron Gold. He's like, hey, do you want to get a scrim together? And I'm like, okay,
that's
cool. You want to do
true.
like a quick little best of 5? It's like, yeah, sure. Kennesaw 4-0s that. And I'm like, ooh. Okay. And while I was watching it, the whole main thing that I kept coming back to is like Par is the newest player. He's a B+ player, and his positioning is just solid. It felt like every time Akron had a pass and field cut out, every time there was a ball that was going on target or going backwards, it felt like Par was just close enough to be able to get a deflection, get in the way. And I'm like, his positioning is like not bailing them out by any means, but it's like he is really like the stalwart position player to be able to like knock things around. It's really like a midfielder in a way. So I really liked that development. And then I think I saw the true, I would say, consequences and them getting really the rewards for that play style in their bracket run. They went to lowers, swept through a bunch of teams to get to the grand final, and then was able to take down Ball State in a bracket reset. Even though going to game 5, I mean, there was moments where Ball State ran away with some games, but there's other games where like they were really getting outplayed. Like they just could not keep up. They were getting a lot of shots off, and the clutch factor was there, the defense was there. And if you can stop Ball State from outscoring you continuously every single game, then clearly
it's a tough thing to do.
Fine. Yeah.
Pyro, I was noticing you. You seem like you had a response there. I feel like you've got something to respond to that one.
Not really. I mean, I'm happy to see Kennesaw take their place in the top 10, like, because I mean they earned it. They hey guys, they beat Carnegie Mellon, so like they deserve this spot.
That's on me.
You should have never put me full screen, Bass.
I'm not going to anymore. We're back to this.
Yeah.
Boise at 9 makes sense.
There had to be a reason that you were like trying to bait me into giving you the spotlight.
No
you know
problem.
what? We're not going to let you. We're going to move on to 8. Number 8 for the nation here. Whoa, okay, this is all over the place. What on earth? Okay,
Hey, Audible, you feeling okay over there?
Yeah,
I am feeling okay.
Defend.
I felt like I kind of rated them too highly last go around. I think I put them at 3rd in my rankings last time. Yeah, I put them in 3rd, and really a lot of that was based on off-season results where they didn't play against a lot of the top teams. Some of the top teams that you would expect to see in league play, they weren't really able to have great results against before. And then also looking at the land that they were at most recently, they had losses that they should never lose to those teams if they're going to be a top team in the West. So looking at that, looking at how they kind of trolled a little bit during qualifiers, yes, they didn't drop a game afterwards. I felt like I kind of had to knock them down a little bit compared to some of the other teams who have impressed me even more so more recently and have more history behind them. No offense to SEU here. I know they're going to be like one of the top 4 teams in the West, but looking at the results and the other teams that are out there, I feel like I overrated them a little bit last time. So this is kind of adjusting that. Might be a bit too much of an adjustment, but that's why I put them down there.
You guys like how I'm adding the topic halfway through this? I realized that.
Beautiful.
I do it live.
I'm trying my best. No, legitimately though, I don't disagree with you by any stretch of the imagination. That's a pretty far drop off though. From
it is.
third,
it is. Yeah.
Consensus from pretty much every analyst was they're at least top 3, if not top 5 in the nation, down to 8th. And that's again, you don't have Boise or Columbia yet, so you're saying that they are a worse West team than Boise or Columbia with this.
I find that
right?
so strange that your argument is
because
like
I don't have Boise on my list.
I just find it strange that you're like SCU is taking losses against teams they should never, and then they won that land. Like they literally won that land. Like
that's true.
Like they're incredibly good, and
They
I
also
will
had
say
to only play 2 series in the playoffs. So
And they
Well,
swept.
yeah.
They swept one of them, didn't they? Didn't they literally 3-0, or was it 4-2? Maybe it was 4-2 in the second one.
they got they at least didn't go the distance, and so it's like
Yeah.
St. Edwards wins that land. And it's like, all right, cool. That's nice to see. And then in quals, I saw, while we were doing our coverage streams, because Vod, Bass, and I were all like jumping around the bracket and show matching games last Sunday, someone come into my chat and say, hey, by the way, did you see St. Edwards lost?
Yeah, I remember that
in
moment.
uppers. And I was like, oh. And then immediately, cluck, the sub for St. Edwards says, don't worry. They were trolling. We're just going to be easy cruising through the rest of the bracket. I'm like, okay, whatever you say. Because I had the same thought. I'm like, of course, you just happen to be trolling when you lost to UBC, which is like historically a pretty good team within the West. Like it's made CRL before. It's made Summer Series. So I'm thinking like, okay, let's see how it is. Literally the lower bracket, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, grand
That's
final,
fair.
3-0, 3-0,
Yeah.
bracket reset. Like they just, and then I'm like, okay, I'm convinced. Because if they were getting 3-1s, 2-1s, whatever, then I'm like, okay, maybe you're not trolling, you're just lying. But the fact that the moment they had to win like 6 series in a row, they just do that casually without dropping a game, I believe that they're still
I
elite.
put them too low. I'll admit that.
Okay. No. That's not the point of the show. You're supposed to defend yourself until like the bitter end. What do you mean you just admit that? Like, come on now. Where's the bitterness? Where's the fighting? Okay. Anyways.
It's all love.
Oh my
all
god.
love.
No, actually, I do think that it's kind of shocking to me. They took literally 1 loss and you dropped them 5 rankings. That loss to UBC was that brutal. That's crazy.
Wait, can
shouldn't have
we
lost
talk
to
about the
UBC?
fact? But consider this, like, probably the 7 above SEU are also really tight-knit, really close with St. Edwards. I mean, like, putting St. Edwards at 8th does look like, whoa, what are you doing, Vod? But at the same
The
time,
rest
when
of
we
the teams are
see
pretty good.
the list continue, it's like, You can make an argument for those
Yeah.
teams being better.
I think the other teams just impressed me more and more recently. That's all it is.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, that's literally why I have Akron Blue on my list at all. I did not have them in there. I had gold instead, and I took gold off because as much as I love them and as close as they got within Ole Miss, they still lost. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, Akron Blue seems like they're back. Also, they actually, I'm not sure if a lot of people noticed this, but their pool was surprisingly deep with like pretty solid teams. They had Davenport, you had Fisher Friends, also UCF Knights, which is a team that got into
really good in summer
playoffs
series.
within summer series. So like they had to beat UCF and Davenport and Fisher Friends all the way into the qual matches, and they did that all upper bracket, no losses. So I'm like, that's pretty solid for me because I had doubts about how Patty and Bullseye and Tristan were actually going to look together. And I feel like I kind of got to look at it in summer series, and I was not super convinced. They were dropping a lot of games, specifically at Algonquin. I think that's the series they lost to get knocked out of summer series playoffs. But then now I'm looking at those results, and I'm like, I feel like they're still dropping games, but they're winning the ones that I would expect them to win. And that's, I would say, the bare minimum for a team that is vying to be considered top 10. Also, have to justify myself because Huntley, the coordinator over it,
dude, he called us out so hard.
He was so
hard.
So upset.
He really did, yeah.
Speaking of call-outs, Bass, I mean, we
Bass
got
Columbia at 8?
Yeah, I mean, you saw the Cam tweet, and you're still putting Columbia at 8. Do you really want to get tweeted at again?
Yeah, okay. What did they do to prove to me that they were a better team?
Did you watch
to get
Taco's
mixed up?
event?
Yeah, and what did they do in Taco's event? They beat ISU, not a top 10 team, and then lost to ISU the next day in a qualifier. Literally the next day, they lost to them. The only team they beat was Boise, which, if we look at my list, they're higher than Boise. That's the only thing in my mind that they've done in the last week to switch it up at this point. They're a good team. I'm not saying that they're a bad team. They're never going to drop out of my top 10. Last week, my argument was, do they drop out of my top 10 entirely? I don't think that they did anything this week for me to go, you were better than the other teams that you were above, and I don't think they did anything for me to drop them any lower. I'll move them over Boise at the moment because they did straight up beat Boise, the team that beat Boise after them. But again, the fact that they then lost in qualifiers, and I think it was like the Esports U one, like literally the next day, is where I kind of look and go, okay, solid. You guys are not moving anywhere like significant at this point. Like, they're a good team. I just need to see more out of them because, again, my argument from before Summer Series still stands. They didn't do anything this week that is going to significantly change it in my mind.
So they actually did beat ISU, but they lost to Northwood White in Game 7 overtime.
That was in the Collegiate one? Yeah. Which, again...
They went
they looked really
the
good.
Distance with Northwood White. And Northwood White was on another level.
And they beat Northwood White eventually beat WVU in Game 7 too after that.
So if you want to transitive property that, go for it. But I don't believe in that.
Yeah, so again, that, like... Look, Columbia, you're still at 8. It's not like I put you in a poor position. I have you over Boise and Akron at this point. Like, again, the issue is just there's 7 other teams in the nation I think are better. Like, just being frank. So, yeah, I think everything else here is pretty standard. Boise getting an 8th for you. Pyro is not too surprising. Akron Blue, again, getting an 8, standard. SEU and Columbia, I guess, are the 2 standouts here, but even then, I understand the arguments on either side.
I think it's more biased, too, than anything else. Like, I'm more biased for Columbia College, of course, because, like, the history of that, the national champions and all that other stuff.
I don't know. I love SEU. I love St. Edwards. All the players on there are the homies, and I just really... I rated them last year,
Maybe because one of the players was from UNLV?
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's part of that, and then also, literally, last year, I said that Dino was him, and I was like, if St. Edwards put any other players around him, this team is invincible, and then they put 2 good players around him, and they are. They're literally proven exactly like, I don't know. So we'll see. Either way, we got to keep going. 7. To Kennesaw, Columbia. Y'all just roasted me for Columbia, and you put them 1 higher. Why?
Yeah,
What's that about?
I put them higher than that.
Hold on.
7 becomes acceptable.
Listen, it is though. And also last week I had Columbia at 7. I know I wasn't on the show, but they didn't move. So like, listen, hey, I can have my own rankings. It's fine. I don't need to be on the show. But Bass, listen, okay, I didn't move them. And it actually is in agreement with your clause. It is the fact that they didn't do anything to impress or detract their ranking. They just showed up how we expect Columbia to do. Top 7 or top 8, Bass, I'll give you credit, is still good. This is national. This isn't even East or West. So yeah, I think Columbia at 7 is good, especially when you consider who's above them.
Yeah, I'm in the exact, again, I think 8's a perfectly fine ranking. I thought 7 was a perfectly fine ranking too. That's why I was surprised y'all were grilling me for that. I'm like, really? What did they do to make them hit top 5? Like, in my mind, there's just too many other teams. Like, again, Kennesaw, both Vaughn, you and I have them both at 7. I would say at the moment, Kennesaw is better than Columbia. I understand why you say otherwise here, Taco. I can see you ranking them above.
I'd
but
say otherwise.
I would say otherwise. At the current moment, I would say Kennesaw is a better team. Like, look, no offense to Columbia, you need to beat a team like Ball State.
Easy.
Yeah, we're not going to read off what Cam's automod message said, but he is not okay.
Cam will always disagree with everything that we have to say on this show. Last week he screenshotted all of them, and you didn't even
Hey,
add
it's
us,
okay, Cam. I got you this time.
Yeah, you got him this time, bro. Come on now. What do you mean?
I think Columbia is still looking great. The fact I will say that like they did regain my trust in the colleague event with their performance against Northwood White. I mean, Northwood White was like looking really strong, and then they nearly brought it all the way back. It brought it to Game 7. I think that might have gone to Game 7 OT. It was a really close series all throughout, and then they just didn't quite pull it through. So it's like still showing that like, yeah, they have the capabilities. And I will say that was probably the best series I saw them with Excelst, because that was like the big question of like, okay, you have a new third, how well does it work? And it's like there's times where they come in second, they win lands, and other times they don't play as well. So I think it's all over the place at times, but I think it's more so just I don't want to be too highly varianced on these picks. I don't like taking a team being like, oh, you did pretty well, just throw you up in top 4 now. Oh, you did a little poorly, you're down to the 10th or out of the ranking or something. So it's like, for me, it's like I'm going to gradually increase. And once the consistency comes through, I think Columbia could definitely break into potentially a higher ranking, maybe like my top 5.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement. Again, the Kennesaw pick for me going over them is not because I think that, oh, Kennesaw got one win, they automatically bump up. Kennesaw was a team, in my opinion, I forgot about coming into this because, again, they had an acquisition that wasn't probably as, mainstream as maybe some of the other ones. They were already good last year. They were a consistent team last year, and this year being able to add one player and then immediately they go through one of the toughest brackets, I would say, in East and get the win. I think I disrespected them not putting them in my top 10 the first time around, especially considering that I was waffling on some teams just on the edge of top 10. They deserve to go in, and they deserve to get a decent bump up because of that. I think that Kennesaw has proven that we overlooked them significantly. And again, this is not to shade Columbia, but it's like, Columbia, you need to do something like huge for me to be able to bump you up further than where you're at right now, because the other teams above you have just kind of consistently been trading wins against big teams, whereas the biggest win you guys have gotten so far recent, at least in my memory, is ISU. And that's like a good team, but they're not even in the top 10. Like they got to do a little bit more, at least in my opinion.
I think also to just defend, because we are getting, I will say, justifiable flack for putting in Kennesaw instead of Ball State in some cases. And they're saying, well, Kennesaw gets one big win. How does that justify things? I would say at the most part, it doesn't necessarily wholly justify it, but it's at the same time, I think it's disingenuous to say Ball State's a top 10 team, and then they lose 2 series back to back, and then say, they're still a better team though.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like I can't, you discount in the entirety of it. I think that's also an issue that a lot of players have, is like when a big team takes a loss that they, I would say on paper, probably shouldn't. And then people say, lucky draw. Anyway, move on. Next day they got it. And it's just like, well, then what's the point of considering any results at all? Like Kennesaw played well. And not only did they play well, but I really enjoyed what they were looking like. I was watching through those games. I watched that entire grand finals. I casted that entire grand finals. And it's just the fact that in series 1, Ball State just did not have it. They were being wholly outplayed for most of that series. And then the second series, they caught back up and yet still could not handle Kennesaw. And I'm thinking, if Ball State is a top 10 team and they just got kind of worked 2 series in a row when it matters the most, fully warmed up at the end of quals, how am I going to discount that from Kennesaw? Like, these are the things that we're trying to keep in mind. Yes, it is recent stuff. And yeah, there may be some bias in there, but that's the justification. If you want Ball State higher on there, or you want Kennesaw not there at all, then they need to do something less impressive than beat a definitive top 10 team.
It's also like, we haven't started the season yet. It's recency
it's
bias if this was
stuff.
like, hey, like we've had these rankings week after week after week after week, and then all of a sudden, one team that's in like 8th just drops off the list and we spike somebody randomly up. But it's like, we're still building these lists to try and figure it out. Once we get a consistent pacing, then yeah, I'll understand if like a team takes a bad loss 1 week. And we
The
just drop them
actual
out of top 10.
preseason ranks are going to be
Yeah.
the most important.
Like,
because
that's what I'm
where
saying.
like we look at everything that happened in the offseason, everything that happened last season, what the results are, how the gameplay is looking for everyone too. Right now, it's just kind of we're doing it a little bit for fun as well. I mean, SEU, I probably should have put up over Kennesaw. I will admit that there. We're just having fun with it. But Kennesaw State, I mean, I just got to represent too for Georgia being like 30 minutes from them.
I will also say in response to what T-Han is saying about does Nichols immediately go top 5 for taking a series off of Fisher? I said this going into these power rankings, and I'll say it again. If you would qualify, there's a world where we have that conversation.
Yes.
But I'm not going to put a
top
team
5, I would say, but they'd be in top 10.
Exactly, but you're not a team. You haven't qualified yet. I will say Nichols, even without having qualified, is probably somewhere in my 11th to 13th spot.
That's
they
what
are
I was thinking too. Yeah.
just on the edge of top 10. They need to qualify first. But I do think, again, to Taco's point, what he was talking about before, that's a heavily underrated roster coming into this season. I really do think Kennesaw, and I would say that LCU squad on West have just like kind of
Green
flown
Park
under
College
the radar.
too are looking good.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of teams that have kind of just been flying under the radar right now that I think are going to become much bigger contenders once the season actually starts. So, again, by the way, just because we literally went so far away, other crazy thing about this: 2 Columbia, 2 Kennesaw. More or less an agreement for all of these teams. Like again, Columbia, by the way, 3 out of 4, 8th or 7th. I'm interested to see where VOD has them at this point. Oh, don't laugh. All right, well, let's see if it's 6th. Is it 6th? It is not. Oh boy. Okay. Wow. He's good.
Hey,
Cam gonna be
agreed with
happy
Ole
with
Miss being
VOD
there.
this week. More parity. 2 Ole Miss, 2 Northwood White.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
I get
disagreements
that.
here, really.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had Ole Miss. Did I have Ole Miss at 6 last week too?
Let me see.
I had them
You
at
had
7.
Ole Miss
I had
at 7. Yeah, so you put them up above Ball State, which makes a lot of sense. I had Ole Miss at 6 last time, and I
Yeah.
think they're still around that rank. They're a really good team, but we haven't seen them play the top teams in this bracket, in our power rankings, so we don't really know how they're going to perform against those teams. So that's the big thing. I mean, I think what was it? They lost to Boise in summer series. They
Yeah.
didn't play any of the top teams that were out there leading up to that either. They had kind of an easier bracket, to be honest. So seeing them once they're playing those top 5 teams, that's going to be the big thing to push them up in power rankings, I think, for me right now.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with you on that one. I think that this is definitely like there's multiple teams here that I think I'm looking at and going, you will finish somewhere between like 3rd to 8th power ranking wise. Like you're somewhere in that mix, but I don't know exactly where. Ole Miss kind of feels like that team right now, to where at my highest I could put them somewhere like top 3 in the nation. But then I also have to look at the Northwoods. I have to look at Fisher. I have to look at St. Edwards. I have to look at a lot of teams and go, okay, are you better than them? And nothing they've done so far has proven that. Again, especially considering that they did lose that land for what was it called? What was the name of the land that we just had? The Hugh. Where they lost to Hugh. Yeah, but they lost to St. Edwards in finals. So it's like, you got to do a little bit more for me to say that they're shaken up. But I do still think that they are a very powerful team and will continue to do well here.
I think like when you talk about, I'm sorry, but when you talk about Ole Miss and you talk about Hugh and you talk about like, oh well, they lost to Boise in summer series. Did they not beat Northwood Blue? Like, so we're saying that they haven't like proven themselves against difficult teams. I feel like they have.
I'm not saying that they haven't proven themselves. I think it's more that it's like, again, this is where single series we're not gonna like. Yeah, I need more. I need more out of them because we've seen the highs and lows for this team. They've beaten Northwood Blue. And they've also lost to Boise. So it's like one of these things where like the equaling out here kind of makes me feel that I want to see what Ole Miss is like during the regular season because so far they've done well. But what happens when week in, week out, you got one series to play on one day, no warm-up bracket, none of that, and you just got to show up. And we haven't seen that out of them yet. I think they're good, but again, looking at the bracket, I don't necessarily think that they beat anybody so crazily that I'm going to go, wow, you guys are another league at this point. But I do think they're good. Like again, I have no disrespect to Ole Miss. If you make top 10 at this point, you are a very good team. That's the whole point. Like CRL got way too close this year. There's no slouches, not even a little bit. I think more or less we're in agreement with 6th. It seems like 6th and 7th
makes sense for Northwood White to be there too, because I'm assuming Ole Miss will be above that for those who put Northwood White there as well. So I'm curious on what number 5 is going to be for most people.
Yeah, I was going to ask Taco about Northwood White, but I want to see what his 5th is first before we start asking him about why Northwood White is there. It's Northwood Blue. 2 Fishers. Ole Miss gets bumped up to 5th for Pyro. I get that. Totally fair. And then Northwood Blue. So you've got Ole Miss high up there, huh, Taco?
You got Fisher high up there, too.
I'm convinced by Ole Miss. Every time I see them play, they're better. My biggest criticism when they first came in was, not to say this is a valid comparison, but like I think all of us were pretty much in calls with each other when we were watching Gen G first come in the league.
Yeah,
Where we're like, this team on paper, sick. And they were just getting worked around in fall open quals like back at the beginning of the season. We're like, never mind, they don't have it. They're just not ready for this. And then I feel like Ole Miss was the same, where I'm like, I saw that roster announced. I'm like, hypothetically, I know they're all friends and that they like play together, but like, do they like play together? Are they like working to work together instead of just like casually getting into a game and be like, all right, time to do quals for this tournament, time to do this tournament? And at first I was not convinced. Every time that Booner, sometimes when he knows he's doing quals, he's like, hey, can you stream our match? Hey, I'll wait. They literally delayed the grand final and Akron agreed just so they could be streamed and casted. And every time I see them, they look better and more clean on the defense, look better on offense. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, that looks a lot better. So I have them high up. But in terms of the lower bracket, the lower side of this top 10, I have Northwood Blue for this just because I have them above White, which granted, even on my own operational definition of like what a power ranking should be, I don't like that because I think White has been showing a lot of it and Blue has not shown up yet. All I've really seen is that in summer series, they were low hours by admission of Slew, the manager for Northwood. And then when I see them come into early season, Seb did a scrim, they look a lot cleaner. And now they get into quals and they clean it up just like old times. So I'm thinking, okay, if they're actually into a good system now and they're actually playing somewhat normally, I feel like they deserve to be back at least near the top.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that, like, again, this is what makes it so hard, is that all of our top 5 are going to probably continue to trade wins throughout this season and probably the next semester as well.
Yep.
Like, it's going to continually be, like, just an absolute brutal battle between every one of these teams. So it's just, I don't know. It's hard. I will say Fisher definitely dropped on my list a little bit here, especially VOD. You had them at 1
I had them at number 1, but that was also because we didn't see them at all in the offseason, and the losses to Nichols College, great for Nichols College, of course, but really bad for Fisher.
Yeah.
Making it all the way to the grand finals, game 7 against Dr. Boomin at the World Championship. I mean, that can't be understated. They didn't even play any of the offseason stuff, so we had no results leading up to then. Now seeing them here, Nichols struggling against that team who none of us had in our top 10. They're getting close to it now, of course, since they took a series and almost took 2 series against them. But Fisher, I mean, they're not a top 3 team right now based on that result. So if they completely swept the floor with Nichols, I probably would have kept them top 3, maybe not number 1, of course. But I mean, that's why I had to put them down a little bit here.
I think it's just like, for me, the big thing is that they just lack consistency. Like we talked about this last season too, during the regular season, is that this team on paper has the ability to literally clap any team in North America. Like, it's 3 professional players who are all really good players at that. This team should not really be vulnerable to anybody at this point, and they just consistently seem to be. So I want to see them find consistency. I think a lot of my ratings right now are talking about teams that are lacking consistency, but on paper are very good teams. I think Fisher is one of the best examples of that. They are a great team. They're a fantastic team, but they just haven't done enough for them to, like, definitively be one of the best teams in the league right now. Again, top 5, that's probably the lowest I will see them this entire season. I do not think they drop out of that, but...
Also, the B team not qualifying. We expected big things from that B team who looked really good. And I'm trying to rank in as well people having their B team rosters and how they're performing as well in these top 10s, because it's the entire program and how they are performing. Fisher as a program, they struggled during these qualifiers. And Fisher, we were talking about Akron, how they were struggling too. Fisher Friends probably should have gotten that victory based on how we power ranked Akron before, not really being the blue team in that top 10 in gold. We were expecting them to do a little bit better than what we saw. So seeing the Fisher Friends not qualify and kind of struggle there and lose to Davenport of all teams, no offense to Davenport, of course, but nobody really expected that to happen going into that series based on previous results.
Yeah, I do think Davenport has been heavily underrated. I think this is a team that has done well, but probably needs to show a little bit more. I don't think top 10, but like they could qualify if they have a good run. Maybe. I feel like that's the best I can give them at the moment. But let's see where we go for number 4 here, because we got more to go through. Number 4, almost the exact same as the last row. Okay, wow, that was
makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I mean, Fisher.
I don't think we really need to talk about it.
Yeah, Fisher definitively 4th or 5th in the nation. It feels like for all of us at this point. I don't. Really...
By the way, just for Fisher at number 4, like they were 3 for me, and I totally agree with what Vod said, which was that like you got to be, if you want to be a top 3 team, you have to be elite. You have to not put question marks over these qualification matches. And there were question marks against ISU. Still a great team. But if you want to be top 3, you got to just get right through that. And that's kind of why, or was it Fisher versus Nichols? Excuse me. Fisher versus Nichols. But it's the same reasoning for Northwood White versus ISU. It was the same thing. It's like, can I keep you? You know, I think a lot of you guys in your power rankings really like to tie together Northwood White and blue and say, you know what?
Yeah,
it's really
that's
difficult
fair.
to separate these teams. If I'm going to put them
kinda
in the
is.
power rankings, they're going to be right next to each other. It's like, we can start to get away from that with some of these qualification matches. I know that maybe with Northwood Blue, we heard the slowness in the hours earlier. Now we're giving them some more credit because they're getting right through these qualifications. I think that's justified, and I'll show that a little bit in my power rankings. But yeah, it starts to get interesting when we separate the Northwood rosters and have to find reasoning to plug different teams in between them.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be real. Part of the reason why is last season, if we did not have that team like on our power rankings, like next to each other, people would lose their mind. I remember last season, everybody's
That's
like,
how
Northwood
close they
Blue's
were.
definitely better, and then Northwood White would beat a team that you wouldn't expect, and it's just like they significantly showed up. I feel like we had that happen way too many times, of where it was just teams that we thought weren't gonna do well would show up, and then we try to separate them, and it's just like no. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of scarred from last season. 'Cause power
Embrace the
rankings-
criticism. Don't avoid it. Embrace it.
Speaking of that, let's go to number 3.
Yeah, let's see what we got. Number 3, our highest Ole Miss
Columbia
ranked at this
College.
point, and Columbia. What?
Best team in the West, has 2 teams who qualified, and their B team beat Northwood White recently, I think also for CCC. So Columbia College are back, baby. National champions. They're here to take on the Western
Two
Conference.
of your
and destroy
3
everyone.
reasons we're talking about the B team. Like, can we talk about why the A roster is number 3, Vaughn? Like,
They looked really good
did you
against
switch
Northwood White
Columbia
at
and
Tacos
SCU?
event.
Is that what happened?
That is exactly what happened.
Taco, you're quiet here. I want to get your thoughts on this. I'm excited.
I kind of explained it earlier, but I mean, I just really like what I'm seeing out of Ole Miss. I was actually able to DM a little bit with Lunar, and honestly, I expected him just to be like, "Yeah, we're just better," but then he actually just said, "Nah, it's all up to the coach." We feel like the actual system we have in place is working now, and that to me inspired a lot of confidence because a lot of players just like, "Yeah, we're just popping off. We're just simply better," and it's like, "Okay, yeah, cool," and then you like move on with your day. But the fact that he was saying like, "No, it's actually the effort we're trying to put in to improving as a team and actually becoming an actual squad," that to me speaks to a mentality that I granted discount Fisher usually for, because Fisher definitely is a team that to me has the highest potential of probably any collegiate roster ever in terms of just sheer talent, mechanics, what have you. But I don't know if they ever put in the work. I think they just kind of show up and then their natural talent just carries them over the top because they're all obviously disgustingly good players. But when it comes to stuff like this, and not to say take anything away from Nichols, but the fact that they're almost beating them, like, and taking games off them continuously. They went to
True.
game 5 in semis. They went to game 5 and in the upper finals and whatnot. So it's like all this stuff is like, this shouldn't be happening if you're Fisher. If you're a world's finalist, if you're the greatest talent the world's ever seen, you should not be dropping, I would say, more than 2 games in most of these series, and very well should definitely be clean sweeping all the way through uppers. So it's a little bit tough for me to see that. Whereas Ole Miss, it feels like they actually have put in the effort and they're doing exactly what I want college students to do. Hear me now. If you want to take this seriously, you got to treat it like you're an actual athlete. I was a
That's fair.
high-level soccer player for many years. You go to school, you take your classes, you go to workouts, you go to practice, you go to scrims, you go to tape review, you go to the gym, whatever, and you do that to get better. And I feel like a lot of collegiate programs, they do the bare minimum. They'll do like 1 scrim a week and then be like, why aren't we powering higher? Why aren't we playing better? Because you're not actually trying to get better as a team. You're just showing up trying to get a bag and it's not working. So put in the effort and you'll start to see results.
That
Damn. That's
Yeah.
all you need. Clip it and ship it.
credit where it's due. I feel like I can't disagree in any way. I appreciate that you're also, it's like, again, it's the effort that you're really, giving them credit for here. And
Yeah.
it makes sense why you have them literally just barely above Fisher at this point. I think you're the only person who has Ole Miss above Fisher. Pyro was close, as he does have it knocked up literally a single rank for both of them in comparison to me and Vaude.
Also have Ole Miss and Fisher above Northwood Blue and Northwood White is a big thing to note too.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. Do you not have Northwood? Wait, what? Where's your Northwood Blue? Do you have Northwood Blue?
Northwood
on
Blue's
here?
at 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, well, you know what? Let's get to 2, and I will also do 1. We did this last week as well, mainly because we all know what number 1 is going to be, and if you reveal number 2, people can figure out what your number 1 is.
Yeah,
So, number
do both,
2,
at least.
number 1, WVU sweeping
Whoa.
across the board here. Pretty much everybody in agreement. WVU is the best team
No
in the
big
nation.
surprise.
Kind of crazy that 3 of us all in consensus that Northwood Blue, though, is number 2. Taka, you still have St. Edwards. Look, as a huge St. Edwards supporter, I couldn't bring myself to do that this week.
I mean, I could. So at the end of the day, I was looking through a lot of squads, and if I will fully admit, if I did not have the context, the lore, what have you, from Cluck Cluck the sub and saying, oh, they're throwing, don't worry, they lock in now.
I didn't have that.
We're specifically saying like, hey, we will be taking it seriously and we're going to try to like beat this. Then they swept through, and not only did they sweep through a lot of teams in lowers, but they specifically beat UT Arlington's new team. They beat Oregon State, which is a team I ranked pretty high in power rankings. I thought they could get far, and they got to lower semis. And then they swept through UBC Gold, the team that sent them there in the first place. Not only doing that, they won the first game 8-3. So like, clearly they're coming in pretty hot and pretty angry. And then they get up there, and as you said, beat CSU. Not only just in a sweep, but 5-1 in the first game, and pretty much carried that through the rest of the series, and then pretty much had the exact same score lines in the second game. So I would say that to me is just a tear of a run where it's like, yeah, you're taking it in. I think they might have the approach that some of those top teams like Fisher, I've criticized them for before, where it's like, yeah, you're just going to play and eventually the win will happen. But then the moment their hand gets forced, then it's like, okay, pull up your sleeves, let's get to work. And then they did. They just completely annihilated that pool. That to me kind of rescued the fact that like, if they take it seriously, like they would in league play, I don't know too many teams in the West alone that we're going to be able to lay a finger on them in third peak.
I kind of agree. I think the only reason I have them underneath Blue is that we always thought Blue had the potential to be a top 3 team in the nation and be like this good. I respect the fact that they came into this qual and they look like Blue again. They look like Northwood Blue again.
That's a big thing.
Like, Zaniol has found his place on that team. I think a lot of us had questions about how they were going to be able to, actually perform with this new roster. I think all 3 of the players are looking better. I think Lion Blaze is on ours again, and he's looking like it because he's playing really well individually. I just want to see a little bit more out of St. Edwards at this point because St. Edwards have done well, but I also have to give credit where, Vaught was mentioning this before. They took some weird losses at Hugh, and I think consistency is a big thing.
I think that'll happen in league play.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's multiple teams in the West that if they don't show up and prepare against, they are going to get clapped. And I don't think that's because they're a bad team by any stretch, but
no.
I want to see something more out of them. I want to see them be able to justify that second in the nation rank that I gave them prior, because again, they did beat WVU. Very few teams at this point have been able to do that in any capacity. So good on them. It's just, I don't know. Northwood Blue being back makes it scared for me to put anybody else within that top 2 because again, it was Northwood Blue versus Fisher last year. Fisher we've seen is vulnerable this year. WVU have not looked that way. WVU clean swept through their bracket, right? They qualified without dropping a game. Okay, so yeah, I mean, good team. Again, I think we can all agree WVU is the number 1. I didn't have St. Edwards far off, but I don't know. Something about Northwood Blue right now just looks filthy. They look very good.
Yeah, WVU didn't drop a single game.
Okay, yeah. So
they also had a kind of an easier bracket. No offense to GMU and Grand Valley, but it's what it is.
Well, that's power rankings. Here, let me get a screenshot before I forget because I'm actually going to need a screenshot to put on the Twitter later. Or at least I'm going to try my
Make
best.
a face.
I'm posing, yeah.
I'm coughing, so I'm trying not to.
But yeah, I basically swapped Columbia and SEU just because from what I've seen historically and from like the grind that I've seen from those players, also Columbia having 2 squads in, I'm like, okay, I kind of want to give them a little bit more credit than we did last time. But I could easily see SEU take everything as super seriously as they can in league play and easily be in that top 3.
I will say, again, this is what I meant, though. When you see what I mean when I say there was a lot of parity and also a lot of just all over the places ranking this week. Like, everybody's got Ole Miss somewhere between 6 and 5, and then Taco's got them at 3. We all have WVU the exact same. Most of us have Northwood Blue, and then St. Edwards is there, despite Vaught having them all the way down at 8. Like, it was really, power rankings this week were crazy. I will, if I can I find them real quick?
That's qualifiers.
Yeah, that's true. I wanna read off Seb's because he did ask, hey, can you read my, put mine in?
Oh boy.
And I was going to, but I did not have time to make a graphic for that. Again, if you guys didn't notice, we were kind of late to start today for who knows why. But Seb had his number 10 Boise, number 9 Columbia, number 8 Kennesaw, number 7 Akron Blue, number 6 Northwood White, number 5 St. Edwards. So he also had SEU a little bit low here. Number 4 Ole Miss, number 3 Fisher, number 2 Northwood Blue, number 1 WVU. So out of our 5 analysts that submitted this week, 4 out of the 5 of them had it WVU and the Northwood Blue this week. Like,
Yeah.
I think that even if like Taco has them at 5 this week, I think Taco, I imagine you can agree, Northwood Blue is at least back. Like, they look like they are back in form at this point.
I mean, yeah, but that to me, I saw the Northwood bracket, and my first thought wasn't like, "Hey, let's go Northwood Blue." It was, man, Illinois State's right next to them.
No,
in
that
terms
was
of a lot of
Northwood
those
White.
games.
That was
Northwood White. Yeah.
Or Northwood. Northwood White. Well,
Yeah.
yes, in their bracket, they went to Rochester, so yes, they did look a little cleaner on that. So I will say,
also
Illinois State
trolled.
approach that is nice, but yeah, Rochester had to come up from lowers, and yes, they did lose to. I cannot remember their upper bracket victory. New
According to them,
Haven.
they trolled as well.
It was University of New
Haven.
Haven, yes,
Early.
but
Yeah.
it was pretty early. But yeah, congrats to them to get back. But I will say, Northwood Blue. I mean, they look back, but again, it's like I've been tricked by this before. I see like a result, and I'm like, oh, never mind. I doubted them, and then that's all I need to see. I need to see like heavy consistency, particularly within the East, which is, you know, historically the teams at the very top are going to be East teams, and Blue has hurt my feelings too many times. I need to see them actually. I need to see them actually come into this season taking it seriously, wanting to succeed, and until I see them like slapping around teams in league play or getting consistent dubs, I don't want to put them any higher.
You know, I think that's fair. I
Who's going to qualify this next qualifier?
Yeah, I rate
Okay.
that team, but I want to see a little bit more. Vaught is hinting as to what we are going to do next here. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, boys and girls, everybody in the audience, what we're going to do is get as scuffed as physically possible. So I'm going to add a couple of little texts real quick here. It's going to be one for East and one for West.
Oh, while you're doing that, Bass, I want to congratulate Seb on remembering Fisher as a college. And
Yeah, I forgot last time.
in his rankings this time around. I feel like Taco had a pretty good reasoning why he hadn't put them in, but Seb like just admitted he totally forgot. So
I feel like that's why he didn't get grilled there as badly either. So, you know,
Yeah.
Okay, so East.
Hopefully.
Oh my gosh, this is already scuffed. All right, and then just a bunch of spaces, and then West. And now let's see if I can turn this into something. That's
The scuff graphics are scaring Taco, so he needs to hide for a second.
Understandably so. All right, so let's.
pretty terrifying.
There we go.
That looks
It kind of works.
good enough, you know.
Yeah.
I kind
a
of
bit more
hate
to the
that
right.
like directionally West is like East and East is
Oh, that's
like
true. Yeah, that is
West, like
weird.
cardinally.
You
That,
suck.
that hurts.
Stop.
Yeah, I would
Don't
switch
stop.
that. You should switch that back.
Yeah, no, I know. I should say thank you. Okay.
There we go. West and West. That's all
Yeah,
we
West
need.
and West, the two divisions that we all know and love within CRL. Okay, so West and East, yes, NA production, yes, I understand. So here's how this is going to go while we wait for Taco to come back. I will explain to the audience. We're going to just name off teams that we believe are potential to qual, and then one by one, we're going to eliminate said teams and see if
Ooh.
we're left with at this point. I think it's going to be a lot harder in East. I think West, we've got a general idea of some of the teams that are in
Yeah.
the qual. But I've got a folder full of my scuffed logos, and hopefully this is going to be enough at this point. Do we want to start with East or do we want to start with West?
I say we start with East. That'll be the easiest.
No, it's not. That's the. Oh, well, I guess technically adding teams is gonna be the
Yeah.
easiest. Okay, so Algonquin. You think we run it? They run it back this time. Do we
No.
see? No, don't even
No.
add them to the list. Not even a chance.
No,
Okay, Akron Gold. Do we think they're going to take it this time?
I think so. I
Put
think
them up
Akron
there
Gold
for
got it,
sure.
All right,
Put 'em up
Akron.
there for
Akron is
sure.
added for now. It's a giant
For how
logo.
competitive they were in the summer series, like and they backed up what they talked about as well. Remember when Jonathan was on there for interviews and he's like, people have no idea how well we're going to play. Like,
Yeah.
I don't just believe in
Yeah.
my squad. I know that we are going to show up. He came on the production and told everybody in the interviews, and then they showed up. It was enough to put your guys' power rankings
Yeah.
with Akron Gold at the top 10. So I think without question, you have to consider them for a qual this round too.
Hold up, I'm centering your title thing because I'm realizing now just this far into it. Okay, well, this far into it, I've realized that I did not have you centered. All right, good enough. All right, anyways.
You just need to put Carnegie Mellon for his little subtitle.
I mean, I'm gonna look. We'll mention CMU in a little while here. They're actually
Sounds good,
two
sounds good.
away. We got literally one team in between on like the alphabetical order here. Bruton Parker College. I
I'd
actually
say
think they
so.
should go on
think they'll
here again,
qualify.
at least like contenders. If we have to knock them off
Yeah.
eventually, we'll do that. But I think BPC. Shout out to Damba, their new third.
It looks-
That dude
they beat
is
KSU like in the qualifiers to send them to the lower bracket. So like KSU qualified, they beat Ball State, and they look pretty decent against Ball State. I think they just got overwhelmed towards the end of it when I was streaming that one. So I think BPC on a different day, they would have gotten the victory, the same as KSU, to make it into the qualifier. So now that they don't even have to worry about those teams against maybe BPC or against Ball State, but I don't think they'll be in the same ranking now.
Yeah, I
just
don't think
based
so.
on, I think they're going to be boosted up a lot based on their more recent results. But Brewton Parker College, I mean, they've surprised a lot of people. They've been more consistent recently in off-season events. And I think they're a team who's maybe not a shoo-in, but they're like close to it, a contender for sure.
Okay, so
For
Pyro's
BPC
I was about to
as
say.
well. For BPC, yeah, no, I'll get to this. BPC also 3-0'd Kennesaw the first time they played them. So,
Yeah,
like,
really? Wow, good for them.
They did.
They've got,
Yeah.
they've got it. They've got it. And I just got the news that Carnegie Mellon didn't sign up, so I'm gonna go change. I'll be back.
Oh, no.
yeah, they did not
sign up.
No, they didn't even
No.
sign up. So
No.
J-Bot.
Hey, that means
bruh.
USF are going to make it.
yeah, bruh, J-Bot, like, come on now, we gotta have some conversations. I'm not gonna put them on here, obviously, because of that. Same with the Durham Lords, who apparently are not competing this time either. So I literally have 2 logos back-to-back that are unusable because they're not competing. So that's awesome. Fisher B team, Fisher Friends, do we think they at least have a
I think
shot
they
to
should.
Well, I would, yeah, again, they should go on here. I'm realizing I didn't add BPC yet. Hold up, let me get, so BPC goes on here.
Shout out to Bass for hand drawing these, by the way.
Dude,
in
this took
paint.
so long. I have realized production for this show. This is my child at this point. I'm putting my entire week into making sure I take care of it. Like, oh my god, it takes so long. Anyways, Fisher there, BPC.
Yeah, I think that makes
Zips.
sense.
Let's see who else. Florida
ISU?
Atlantic. No.
No.
GMU. No.
No. Sorry, GMU.
GVSU, Grand Valley State University.
Possibly,
If-
but I don't
depending on their bracket.
think
I'll,
so.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
depends on the
I
bracket.
will add them on here for now. Again, the point of this is if they have a chance, they go on, and then we'll start knocking them away as we have more and more. So, Illinois State, I'm just gonna
Yes,
put them
of
on here. Yeah, I
course.
think that, like, yeah,
they
that's
need to qualify. Like, how good
Theoretically,
they
they
looked
should.
recently, like, unless
Okay.
they get a terrible bracket or something like that.
this one interests me. IRSC. I feel
No.
like they are just on the cusp, but I
See,
don't think they
no.
make it. I think
They
unfortunately
lost to OSU Scarlet.
wasn't
which
OSU
was
like solid of a team though? Didn't like, we all
confusing
agree?
to me. No, absolutely they were solid, but I just expected them to go farther.
IRC aren't making CRL.
Okay. All right, I'm just not going to put them on here for now
Yeah.
because that was the bad OSU. Okay, that's not great. King University, I'd like to at least put them on here, potentially knock
There's too
them
many
off.
good teams. There's
Well,
too
okay,
many good
I
teams.
agree, but I still think they should at least go on here and they get knocked off. This is a team quality enough that they, if they get the right run,
They
could make
could.
CRL. Like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't know.
We'll see how many teams we end up with, but I'd like to at least put King on here for now. I think
Sorry,
they're
I just
deserving.
saw that logo. Oh, that's amazing.
Dude,
It's a tornado, if not a bunch of squigglies.
It's what it is. That's a tornado. Look, you guys know it's a tornado, so therefore I think it worked. Laval, no. I don't
They're
think
not
so.
even a team anymore. I don't
No.
think so. Yeah.
Nichols. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
After
Obviously,
how they
you have
performed
to.
against Fisher, they need to make it unless they get again screwed in like seeding or something like that. But they shouldn't.
Yeah, I believe Nichols was 16th. So the way that quals, I believe, are seeded are reverse
1 in
snake.
16,
so
yeah.
it's 1 through 8 for pools, then 9th goes into 8th, then
Mhm.
10th goes into 7th pool, and then so on. So unfortunately, if you're like at the back half, like 5th, 14th, 15th, 16th, you're probably playing against the top seeds in your region. So
Yep.
I think Nichols gets an upgrade from there, and I think they dodge that for the most part.
I would agree.
Yeah. Same.
Rochester. I think we at least put them on here for
Yeah.
now.
I'd put them on here.
We'll
It
figure
is,
out based
yeah.
on what teams are remaining if we think that they're actually going to qual or not. But they should at least go on here for the moment.
Yeah. I
I mean,
agree.
they got knocked out by Northwood.
Yeah,
and
that
then
is-
had
that's
that weird
rough.
loss to New Haven. So I think they definitely deserve to be up here.
Their
Also,
loss to
can we
New
just
Haven was
put-
just like the St. Edwards one. Apparently, they were just trolling.
Yeah, just trolling. Every single loss in my ranked games is trolling too. Can we just put Ball State up here because
Oh,
they're
that's
not
right. Yeah. I
here
can't
and
forget
Oh,
then
about
they
that.
just
yeah. I
should be.
actually skipped.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real.
Yeah.
I skipped over them because I thought they had qualled in my mind. I didn't need to mention them
I
because they
keep
were
doing the
already
same
qualified.
thing. Yeah.
And
No,
that's
but-
on me. So I'm gonna also make this Nichols logo larger. I don't know if
Stockton,
that's-
though.
Stockton
Mhm.
actually really good. Oh, actually no. I was gonna say that's more or less alphabetical. We got 3-4 teams in front of them that I do think are worth mentioning. Rutgers is not gonna make it. I don't
No.
believe so. They might have made Summer Series. I don't think they make it here. This one's interesting. Do we think Seton Hall has a chance?
No.
Nope.
Not at all. Not even
Not
at
at
all.
all.
Wow.
Not even close. No.
That's crazy. They impressed me. I thought they did pretty well. USF. Now, Taco, you get no answer here. This is up to Vaudeville and Pyro. How do we feel about USF?
Well, now that they're actually receiving coaching from Taco, I'd say yes.
I actually should. I
Because they
feel I should
weren't
add
going
some
into that
context
one.
here. Taco is the coach of USF. For those that are unaware, this is why we say this.
For that reason, can we hear from Taco? Because he
Fine,
has the
fine,
most
fine.
insight.
Taco, you have the floor. Go.
So I will say, before Carnegie Mellon disappeared from the face of collegiate, they did have JBot in, and they beat USF in 3 in uppers. And I was like, that's a tough one. I'll check in with the lads later because I was currently streaming and casting. And then I saw USF just kind of clean through the lower bracket, and eventually they lost to Kennesaw, the team that actually did qual in. They had a pretty good series. We did replay reviews with it. And walking through, pretty much all the goals that we did get scored on were mostly just mechanical mistakes, like, okay, I'm going to go for a touch and overhit it, or it was just like an individual mistake that went on replay. It was like, I don't know why I did that. And the only other copium I have is that Sean, one of the players, he actually had sinus surgery the other day, like days before, and apparently he was still coming down from basically like post-surgical like fever, like a little bit of meds. So he said he was not in his right mind. He felt like he was really kind of like rebalancing. So we went over that review, and I'm thinking, you know, there was, I think every single one of those games against Kennesaw, there was a point in which USF we led. And I'm thinking, okay, they're pretty solid. So even though I love my boys, it will also depend on the bracket. I think they can definitely make it in, but it's going to be tough. They say they're pretty confident. We were going through potential plays based on potential seedings, and they felt pretty confident about pretty much like all the mid-tier seeds in East.
That makes sense.
In response to that, I actually do believe they did. Yeah, I was going to say they should at least go on the list for now. I think that they deserve to get thrown on here if we have to kick them off because of, again, oh yeah, no, dude, this one's, I'm actually just going to let this one sit here for a second. Can we appreciate how good this one is? Dude, I even got, there's a little bump in the edge. There's a bump in the edge of this one of where his elbow sticks out, and I made sure to include that. Is the edge there clean at all? No, not even. But I did awesome. I killed this one. This one's great. Anyways.
Got the gains.
Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna lie. This took me so long to do all of these. They're like, bro, Nichols one. Why is this one so good? Like, I actually did well with this one,
solid,
but like all the other ones, like I don't know why I
Like
just
you traced that one.
Yeah.
Bro, I did not. I promise you that. And then there's also this. Anyways, moving on. So
I think a couple teams we have to mention, especially for the sake of Seb and the Canadians out there, UDM, St. Clair Green, and Valleyfield have a shot for the Eastern Conference.
I will put, so St. Clair is the next one alphabetically that goes on here, and I will agree, I think St. Clair Green does have a shot at this one, so I'd like to put them on the list. I'm going to be real. Going into this, I would have thought UDM. I look at how many teams are left. I don't think there's a shot in heck that they're going to make it. I think
they have
UDM
a better
go on here.
shot than King and GVSU, personally.
What? I don't know. Like, GVSU, sure. King, I don't know if they've got a better shot than.
It depends on the bracket, but in my mind, the caliber of players on UDM is really good.
I think they're good, but I just don't. Look, that's
they
one.
Took
We got
Rochester
one vote
to
apiece.
5 as well.
Taco,
and then,
Pyro.
Valleyfield didn't really do much. So.
I mean, I did a show match on my stream the other day. It was King versus University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, led by the auspicious, I believe, rank A Peaceful, and they looked pretty decent. King ultimately won, but it took them in 7. There was a lot of games where there was like full blowouts. Other games where they just couldn't really hang in there. And personally, as much as I love UIUC, they're not a team that, if we're considering King a CRL level team, that they should be going to 7 and really going back and forth and struggling to get on that. So it's like King, I think someone in chat earlier said King's got to play like they're not ranked. And I think that's a great way to describe them. It's definitely a team that gets a little too fast and loose with everything. And it's like, I like that. The chaotic energy can really beat a lot of teams because they're just going to be overwhelmed. But for a lot of other more organized teams, it's kind of like, oh, cool. Thanks for the open net.
So are we trying to take King off already? Or are we already looking at these?
I would say King's like fringe case, same with GVSU. Like if they have a good bracket, then I think they can definitely do it. But if they're starting to play against like more of the top seeds, I don't think they can compete at that level yet.
All right, that means both of these guys go off as of right now because we're already getting too many teams, which is why
that's 9 teams right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, which is why I say I don't think we can put Montreal on here over the other teams. That we see at the moment.
I don't think so.
Stockton, I think, does need to go on here. I think Stockton have a very high chance of making it. We're starting to get to the point where all these teams are about even skill wise, and this is going to get hard for us to make picks on who's actually going.
Oh man.
All right.
Do we want to throw up Harrisburg?
No, they're not making it.
I didn't make a logo for them, and I'm gonna be real. I think Harrisburg is good. They also lost to Siena Heights, who lost to Seton Hall, who we all argued should not be on here. So if they're that low on the totem pole, no, we're not putting them on here. Syracuse, good team during summer series. They impressed me.
Oh,
I don't
no
think they
drip
make it.
for Stockton Qual 2. Oh no.
Oh.
I don't know if they make it then.
Dude, we all said, I said that, I screamed this from rooftops.
Although
I
that would
literally
mean
said,
Tony
if
Pizza
Stockton
in.
don't qual in qual 1, they are tossing. That was the easiest qual for them by far. Look, St.
Trap
Clair
top cheese
good?
and deck.
Yeah,
no.
dude, Trap
No.
or Anthony Pizza? What do you mean no?
I don't think so. Look, Trap and Anthony Pizza were both good. Look at the teams we have here. You really think without one of their star players that Stockton is going to take out the other teams without one of their front three? I think that's a crazy take.
It depends on the bracket, but yeah.
I
That's a
mean,
tough
look,
one.
the last bracket was one of, I would say, the easiest brackets they probably could have taken. I think
That
they
is
do
a good
not-
point.
I don't
Choose
think they
making
get an easier
too.
one. Like,
Stockton over St. Clair, USF, or BPC. I wouldn't say BPC right now, but
No, I
I'd say
wouldn't say
maybe St.
BPC.
Clair and USF.
look, Tony Pizza, my boy. Look, I'm a full can for this. I love you. You know I love you. I love that team. I like all of you guys. This just comes down to the fact that it's like, if you have been practicing over and over and over again with a specific third and just getting prepared, like, hey, we're going to qual with this guy. We're ready to go with this guy. And then he just goes, hey, I'm not there. I'm not going to take I'm not going to take the Lakers if we don't have LeBron. Like, you can't have a player on the team missing and then have it be like, yeah, they're still just as good. Like, I can't do that. Like, I think you guys are good, but that is hard. Yes, I do have a USF shirt or UCF shirt on, Jar. It's just a cool design, all right? Shout out to Bolby. Anyways, no, but look, I think Stockton's great. I would have said surefire they go through. I do not think without drip they're going to make it. That's hard, man. That's a really hard thing for me to say. I'll keep them on here for right now, but that, when we start eliminating teams, I feel like they're one of the first to go.
Yeah, probably put Stockton, if you want to rearrange things of teams who we think are going to qualify or teams who are on fringe, I think fringe would be Rochester, Stockton, USF, and St. Clair right now, and then the other teams would be probably should qualify.
Looking at the rest of the teams we have here right now, I don't think there's any other additions we need to make for East at the moment. We got UCF, Montreal, Connecticut, Valleyfield, VT, Virginia Tech, and then that, I think, is everybody when it comes to the East as far as I'm aware. We have Davenport on here as well, which actually I do think wouldn't be a bad...
UDM over Davenport.
Okay,
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Do we think that this is enough then? No other additions we need to add, and we can just start whittling down from the teams we have remaining?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, East is a difficult thing as someone who does a lot of these rankings or seedings.
East is tough,
that
yeah.
it's basically in West, historically, you go through your top 6, 7, and then you're like, okay, most of these teams can kind of even out after a bit. East, you get into the mid 20s, and then you can start evening out. There's a lot of really good teams that on their day can definitely make it in. So when people might be looking at oh, that's such a disrespectful Trap and Anthony Pizza, they've I mean, I know Trap was personally, he had won a LAN with NCECC with that roster formerly with Bussy and Top Cheese. So I'm yeah, clearly you can play at that level, but it's East is stacked. This second qual is just as difficult for some pools as qual number 1.
So I'm gonna give us a little bit of time to mull this one over and think about it.
Yeah,
and
let's
in the
go
meantime,
West for now.
Yeah, let's go to West. So first one's first. Alberta. No, I don't.
They don't exist anymore. I don't think.
Oh,
yeah.
they don't. Okay, never mind. That's even easier. ASU. This team surprised me. They do have an APAC pro on their team. Granted, as the APAC guy, I will tell you this much: Ari Neal used to be very good. He's been less of a factor in APAC as of recent, so I don't know if necessarily I could see a world where they qualify, so I'd be tempted to put them on here, but
they didn't even make top 32.
Did they really not? Their main team did
No.
that poorly? Oh god, okay, yeah, never mind. I take that
not.
back. They're not going on here. That's absolutely fair. Borregos, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say Borregos.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Borregos goes on here. Wait, didn't ASU, don't they now have one Zen? Wasn't that the whole thing? Or is
That was their, I think, secretive kind of drop on everyone. I know Anthem was oh, you better watch out. We got something kind of interesting coming up. And I was what is it? And then I just looked at the roster. I was oh, there it is. It's that's your secret kind of transfer from another West school.
And also, as a man who went to Arizona, I actually am realizing I could not have lived with myself had I put ASU on here. That would have been a horrible. Cal Poly. no ones then do we think they
have
make it.
looked good actually during the qualifiers. I think they made it pretty decently far when I was looking at it. Yeah, they made it all the way to the final against Maryville and took a game against them. So like Maryville, people were saying top 4 team in the West. Cal Poly, I mean, they're looking kind of good. So I think depending on the bracket, they should make it in.
Are we put them on?
I'd say so for now.
All right, okay. So Cal Poly for now.
And that's Cal Poly Pomona, but
God, look at. Oh, is this different? I don't know if this is different.
I think
This
it's
will
the
represent them for
same.
now. This will represent them
see.
for now. God, these logos get worse. I don't understand how this is getting worse. Cal. So Berkeley, UC Berkeley. No,
I don't think so. No,
no.
I don't
Okay.
think they made top 32 either.
I think this one. I'm just gonna add this one because I think we can all agree this team is qualifying this time through CSU.
Yeah, CSU are making it.
I think I think there's no world where you look at this team and go, yeah, they're not making it. Like, I think this team's good. Again, they might have lost to St. Edwards, but it's St. Edwards, which the worst ranking we had this week was them still in the top 10. So like, Columbia's both their teams have made it. CSU Fullerton.
No.
No. Yeah,
No,
I'm like they're on
Once upon a
fringe.
time, they're a team that like gets in there, and you're like, yeah, let's go, love that.
So
squad.
Cal Poly was the
But
team who lost to
anymore.
Borregos, and Cal Poly Pomona was the one who made it to the qualifying match against Maryville. So I feel like Cal Poly had a tougher bracket, and they also had to face off against New Mexico State University and beat them in Game 5 there, and didn't make it all the way into the upper bracket semifinals. So maybe on Cal Poly, maybe more so on the other Cal Poly, but hard to tell, really.
I'm gonna make a way so that we can actually differentiate here, even if it doesn't look great.
I think it depends on the bracket for both those teams, really. You can kind of like interchange them a little bit.
So there's Pomona. I think that's how you spell it. I don't really know. CSU Long Beach. LB
got
was
close.
good. Yeah, I remember they were
Yeah.
close. I remember they did decent, right? Like,
Who do they have to play against again? I'm looking at it right now. They played against Boise and got 3-0'd by them, but they beat Kansas Blue and then lost to Kansas Blue. So I'd say potential for Long Beach.
I'll throw them on here for now. Also, because I want to share this logo, just because. Oh my gosh, it's a masterpiece. But yeah,
GR saying they lost to a real powerhouse, fair, but they also beat the real powerhouse in the upper bracket. So it's like you guys are 1 for 1.
we're almost at Kansas. We're almost about to discuss them. I know Jar's just waiting so that he can clip it and put it on Twitter. So we're gonna wait to get there. Next up though is one I think that we're all gonna agree is making it. Dragonas Carolina. I think that team makes it almost guaranteed in my mind.
I've heard Borregos are better than Dragonas right now, but I could see them making it depending on the bracket, yeah.
I agree with that, but I still think that they're going to make it, if that makes sense. I think if they don't get a bracket that is 2 against them, I think they 100% make it, at least in my mind.
But do they
Dragonas
use the
lost
dash
to
between
UNLV,
E and
though, that's
sports?
fair.
Yeah, they do, actually. That was in their logo. I drew that in their logo.
Put them
Yeah.
down on fringe.
Okay, well, they're on
just
fringe
for
for
that,
now.
just for that spelling.
Yeah, I
fringe
think
for
they
now.
can make it. It depends on the bracket too, because they lost to UNLV twice. It was 3-1 the first time in the upper semis, and then in the lower bracket final it was 3-2. So they kept it really close, and that's actually better than we typically see Dragonas do against a lot of teams. So
Don't they have a new player, though, this time in Ness? They didn't have him last year, did they? Or did they have him
it's a
last year?
good question.
I'm not sure. Either way, we'll keep them on here for now. Another team that I think is also going to be fringe, but definitely could. GCU, Grand Canyon University. That team was solid. I feel like there's a world where I could see them making it. I would say put them on
Maybe.
here, but I don't know if they stay on here at the end, if that makes sense.
Are they the same as
They
last
got
year? The
3-0'd
team we
by the
saw
new
best?
UTD,
Yeah, I think that's-
though, is the thing.
Okay, but new UTD impressed a lot of people, I will say. A lot of people wrote off UTD, and then they actually showed up. So but yeah, I think it's the same team we saw in Lay and Pyro. I think it's the
Also,
same team.
Kansas's B team took them to Game 5.
Okay, so we'll hold off on them for right now.
Yeah.
If there's room, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
If
Now-
you're speaking of UTD, do you want to throw them up?
UTD is further on this list. I have it in as
All right, we'll
UTD.
stick to your alphabetical.
We gotta go alphabetical.
sequence.
Come on now.
I'm so sorry.
Next in alphabet, yeah, I was gonna say it's Kansas, and I think that we can all
I think
say
Kansas have a solid shot.
I think they have a good shot. We'll see how many teams actually end up here for West, and then if we have to start eliminating teams, I could see
West
them
is going to be so
definitely-
hard.
Did I draw 2 Jayhawks? What does that even mean? What do you mean? What is there 2
I think
of
that's
them?
what that bird is. Because they have the red team. They're saying, oh, you should put the red team up there.
Oh, what? No, that's not happening. You get one logo. Stop. All right. Loyola? No, I don't think so.
I don't have them on my list at all.
We think
They
Mizuka.
had like one good run, but past that, I don't know. I don't think they have the firepower. I don't see enough offensive threat
Yeah, I agree.
from them.
Do we think Mizzou runs it back this year?
No, they lost 3-1 to Cal Poly.
Wow, you had
Pomona.
that on rip. You had that on lock. You were ready to just say no Mizzou guaranteed. Okay, no Mizzou.
Yeah, I looked it up before. Yeah.
All right. Now everybody's favorite controversy. Does Oregon show up at all? Do they even
Oh,
They have
if they
to.
play?
They have to. I mean,
Yeah.
They
it's,
have
it's,
to. Yeah.
that would just be an epic
That'd be
failure
so
of like the
funny.
coordinator, team manager, all the players. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a team
Do they have scholarship?
be that highly. It doesn't matter. I mean, at the end of the day,
but
you're
if
like
they have
playing
scholarship
Rocket
and don't
League.
show up twice, though, I mean,
The
that's
only
ground
No
okay,
game.
the
arrow?
downside-
You're telling me
Zeta has informed that Arrow is not playing, so that's
you're
one of the
telling me
starters.
that they had one chance to play with their entire roster, and they literally didn't even show up. Now they don't even get a chance to qual. They're not qualling. I don't think they qual. I don't think they qual.
Boondog.
I'm ready to
What
just
a great
disrespect
name.
them because I'm actually just upset now at this point. Like I'm really upset that
Oregon
they
to
missed.
sleep.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
Can we
those
still
who
see your
don't know
logo?
as well for qualifiers.
Yeah, do you wanna- yeah,
in
yeah.
the West, there is
Yes,
9
please.
teams that can qualify out of 9 pools. You have to win your pool. You can get bracket reset, but as long as you win that grand final, you make it. In the East, there's 8 teams who can make it in this go around for it. Qualifiers are happening on Sunday. There'll be community streams. We'll post about that in the chat a little bit later on too. But
yeah.
that's
This
kind of
is
the
a-
process for it. That's a really good one.
I
for
know, and I'm
Oregon.
sad that I didn't film the eyes. Apparently, I didn't do
Oh,
that. And
It
I didn't know
does
that.
look like it's a Halloween demon costume a little bit.
Okay, but this is-
Just because the eyes aren't filled in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
'cause of the
Yeah.
eyes. That's on me.
it's a little trippy.
So do we at least put them on here for now? Because look, I might be the #1 Oregon hater at the moment, but I feel like I
Okay,
just-
there's
them on
9
for
spots. I would say just keep them up at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep them here for now. All right, so Oregon, stay there. Okay, I need Zeta to tell me
Should
if this
think I
team
can
actually
see
signed
them.
up, because if they did, I think there's a world they make that. Did BU and SJSU sign up? Because I know that BU was on that San Jose State roster team, or that roster. I know he's
Good
and he's a
question.
good player. If he signed up, I'd be willing to put them on here. But if there is no BU on that roster and no SJSU, they do not go up here, obviously. So if Zeta's listening, I want to know if that roster.
I haven't heard of the team.
Yes, BU did sign up. I would say put it on then. I would say if BU is on that roster and SJSU are competing, I don't think they competed.
Who are the
in
other 2
first
players,
call.
though?
I don't actually know. But
'Cause that's the tough part. It's
Look-
no longer good enough to have a really good player and then 2 randoms. I mean,
Like,
we've seen that with Harrisburg, and we
yeah.
kept them off our list
but
on the
that's
Eastern
East.
Conference.
that's East. Like they did DQ in
Oh,
qual
they
1.
DQ'd
Okay,
in
so
one. Okay, we can put them up there for now. Then, yeah.
I was gonna say I think they at least go up here for now. I don't know if they stay up here, but I think that they deserve at least a mention, if that makes sense.
fair.
SDSU.
Yes, they look
Yeah.
really good in quals, and
Okay.
they're consistent. I think they're a similar roster to Summer Series, if I'm not mistaken. They lost to the
Columbia.
main Columbia College roster too, and since I had Columbia College so high, I got to say SDSU are looking pretty good.
Yeah,
so.
number 3.
Okay.
They also beat North Texas too.
Someone mentioning Ottawa here. I don't have a logo for them. I don't think I made one for Ottawa. Do
Ottawa
we...
have potential, but they did get
Didn't
3 up
make
by
it to
Cal
lower
Poly Pomona.
finals?
So yeah,
Okay, so no Ottawa, or do we put Ottawa?
possibly Ottawa.
All right, I'm just gonna
I'd say
type
they have a
out-
chance.
I'm just gonna literally put a text that says Ottawa. I'm hoping I spelled this right. I'm gonna be real with you. Wait, actually, I'm realizing that I literally have somebody who has already typed it out, so I can't. If I do spell this wrong, yeah, you know.
Seb's gonna kill you. It's 2 T's is all you need to know.
Okay, cool. So,
Ottawa.
Okay.
There you go.
yeah, okay.
And
yeah.
it's not the one in Canada. That's all you need to
Dude,
know.
I've
It's
actually
in, I
watched that
think,
team play
Kansas or
before. They're not
something, or-
terrible. They really are not.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ottawa. Let's see. Where else are we on this list? Texas A&M? No, I don't think so. I would say
No,
so.
They got close though.
They got close. I don't think they make it. UCSB? Santa Barbara?
No.
No? Okay, no, Santa Barbara. I think UNLV do get a shout here. I think
Yes,
UNLV definitely looks good
100%
enough that
UNLV
I
are
would see
making
them
it,
that
yeah.
they could make it.
I'd
Especially
say they're one of the top 10 West teams right now, honestly.
wow. Okay, so all right. I see USU. UTA. You think UTA runs it back?
No. They're
No?
gone. They didn't
No,
even
okay.
make top 32.
Utah.
UT Austin? Or like
Yeah.
Utah, like UTAH.
UTAH.
think so.
Yeah, no.
I don't think
UTD.
so,
Wait,
yeah.
are we sure on UTA? They lose to Oklahoma Christian and they lose to Dragones.
Oh, they did. Okay. They had a tough bracket. But
That
if they
is a-
lost to Dragones and Oklahoma Christian, then regardless of what their bracket's going to be, they probably won't make it, right? Because we already have so many teams up here in the West.
I don't think that I would put what's UTD over any of the teams we have currently. I don't think so.
But you mean UTA?
UTA, yeah, excuse me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
UTD I'd put up there.
Yeah, UTD.
Definitely
I
UTD.
think,
That's
I
why.
think
That's what I said.
UTD definitely goes up here. I think that this gets added like underneath here. How are we having more West teams? How? Oh, I thought this was supposed to be
It's
easier.
because West is harder than East for
Okay.
the teams that can potentially make it in, because a lot of those teams are a lot closer than they would be in the East.
True. Weber State and Wichita State are the last two that we have here. I don't think
we
either
don't
one
have
of them-
Missouri S&T.
Oh yeah, MS&T is also here. I actually had to draw their logo separately. I do have their logo, which I'll throw up here because also look at it, it's glorious. But yeah, I'd say Missouri S&T definitely goes on this list as well. I think that they also join here.
But no, I don't think either of those teams make it.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that there's really anybody else.
Okay, who are we eliminating? That's all we got to get through now.
Yeah. I think
East
we
will
go.
be easier.
Yeah, let's go East first.
because
Let's
there's
go
less
East first.
teams.
There are how many total East teams do we have here? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. Is that 9? Or am I miscounting? No, that's 10. It's 10. So we gotta get rid of 2 of these teams. Is what that means.
I'd say, sorry, Taco, to get rid of USF.
No. Taco.
No, I'll allow it. I mean, I'm not gonna try to
Oh,
argue like we're
no.
guaranteed. At the end of the day, like
Yeah.
it really depends on the pool. I think even as confident as we all are against like our play style and everything, I think there's a lot of moments where the team, like even when we're reading off some seeds, it's like we could win that, and it's like that's not truly confident. Whereas I name off other teams, and like yeah, we can take that. We can like it comes in with like a lot of bravado. So it's
Okay.
like trying to put bias aside. I think it's like it's a very tough competition. I mean, we were talking even before, like trying to just pick top 16 in CRL. It seems like you get to number 12, and it's like, oh, that's the end of like the rank A average teams. It feels like not literally, but that's what it feels like almost.
All right, so USF. I'm sorry, but we must say our goodbyes. That is unfortunately. One
I'd
last
say
team.
bye to St. Clair too.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning.
Them or Stockton though.
That's-
but like,
that's-
See, Stockton is where I'm tough without
Stockton's
Drip.
tough.
I don't know. I don't know. Do you put them over St. Clair at that point? The roster shakeup is making me very confused.
When we doubt Stockton, they qualify. So maybe that's what they need. They need us to doubt them again because we were high on them once we heard the roster announcement, and then they didn't qualify. So now we need to doubt Stockton again so that they can qualify. That's what I think we should do.
I'm somewhere in between right now. I feel like this Stockton team could do well, and they definitely could show up. But I also look at the rest of the teams that are there, and I am hard pressed to say that any of them would lose to that Stockton team with their sub. I think St. Clair is probably the closest.
Gotta get that European representation.
It's either St. Clair or it is Stockton. I think I'm leaning towards St. Clair because St. Clair didn't qualify last year, and the teams arguably got harder this year. So they're coming in with a similar roster in a harder pool. I don't think that they make it. I think I will give it to Stockton. I don't think I would give it to St. Clair.
I'm just going to say that St. Clair got knocked out by ISU.
That's
they played them
true.
twice, and I personally put ISU very high.
Okay.
I do as well, yeah.
I know it's hard, I'm just saying.
Stockton losing to St. Clair twice is just also classic.
All right. Let's Taco, St. Clair or Stockton. I guess you're kind of the deciding vote here since we're all kind of
I would
indifferent.
kick off Stockton. I think they're a good team, but St. Clair Saints, when they're on, they took an L in my tournament to Stockton, but that was also with Drip. So it's like, and it was still pretty close at times. So I just don't think they have it in this time.
All right, our 8 teams for the East that are qualifying are the Akron Zips Gold, BPC, Fisher, St. Clair, ISU, Rochester, Nichols, and Ball State. And I think that's pretty
all
fair.
Depends on the brackets, though.
All dependent on the brackets.
With the asterisks there, you know.
All right, and our West teams. I think.
Oh my goodness.
Borregos. I think. Let's just go through the ones that I think we can guarantee are going to stay on.
CSU.
Here. Yeah, CSU. Borregos.
SDSU.
Kansas, I'd say, also kind of a guarantee.
Yeah,
MSNT,
I think so.
A guarantee for me as well.
UTD?
UNLV.
I think UTD. We say no Ottawa.
How many teams is that already? Yeah, no Ottawa.
Okay, no Ottawa. No Ottawa. Do we think that
No Pomona.
No Pomona. Yeah, no Pomona. I gotta delete both of those.
Or Cal Poly.
No Pomona / Cal Poly. I guess they're one and the same, which means it leaves us with that's 3 that need to go.
Get rid of Long Beach.
No,
Oh,
Oregon.
2 that need to go. There's 9 spots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
You're
that's
right.
true.
You're right.
That's true.
I don't think Oregon make it now that they don't have their entire team. I don't think that's going to happen. Also, I'm seeing people be like, "Why are they rated so high?" This is not an order. This is just if they qual.
Yeah.
So no Oregon in my mind. I don't think Oregon make it. We need one more team to go. Is what this means?
BU's team, maybe, because they'll be lower seeded.
Yeah,
So-
that might be. Honestly, that's probably the biggest reason. The fact they didn't show
Yeah.
up and now their seed's going to be bad is going to be a problem. I think that's going to... I don't think they qual based on exactly that.
Wait, whose logo is this? I don't.
The BU,
Memorize logos.
SJSU.
Like, who else is on that
Well,
roster?
I'm stuck on teams like Long Beach. I don't know.
I'm with you on this. I
Is
think
it
it's between-
UCSB?
No, CSULB. That's Long Beach. So I'm thinking it's between Long Beach and SJSU right now.
No, not Long Beach. The Spartan helmet. Is that
That's
UCSB?
SJSU. That's
SJSU?
San Jose State University.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know the
I-
other players on that roster, so I can't really say that they're going to qualify. It's just the main thing for me.
Yeah, I think for right now, they have not earned enough of a spot here, so SJSU goes off. And then EOR, I can see you in chat, 9 teams qualify this time from West. So technically, there is still a spot up for grabs. I think this is fair. So our East teams are the Zips, BPC, Fisher, St. Clair, ISU, Rochester, Nichols, Ball State. West teams, Borregos, MS&T, Colorado, CSULB, Dragonis, Kansas, UTD, UNLV, SDSU.
Yeah, I could see all these teams qualifying,
I think these are all fair. All right. Well,
depending on brackets.
I'm gonna. I'll take a screenshot of this later.
Yeah,
I'll
take another
that.
screenshot.
Guys, we are very, very much out of time here. This has been a very long show that already started late. If you guys can't tell, this is why we did call it a podcast, despite it not really being a podcast. Pretty much everything on this show is visual, but just like a podcast, it extends too long. I guess before we leave out of here at this point, the only thing that we really got to say is watch out for CRL quals. It's the final weekend to qualify for CRL if you are a team that is interested. I'm so sorry. You should have signed up literally already at this point. Shout out Carnegie Mellon. Anyways, but there are multiple teams that are still going to be competing on Sunday, and it is going to be live. I believe I'm going to be streaming it. I believe Taco will be, and I believe Audible will as well. We'll see if Pyro maybe humps into a stream here or there if he's not too sad about Carnegie Mellon not showing up. I'm going to keep mentioning that. Yeah,
that's
just
Ooh,
Pyro,
that's gotta hurt.
actually, though, thank you for coming on to the show. We really do appreciate it, my
Thank you
guy. You
very
were
much.
absolute pleasure to have on here today. And honestly, a very, very solid top 10 power rankings that I would say were pretty in line with the rest of us at this point. Guys, for those that are curious about more for the Champ League podcast and everything that is going on here, just go to our Twitter, or at Champ League Show on Twitter is where you guys can keep up with all of the action. Hopefully that gets plugged somewhere in the Twitch chat right now. If it does not, I appreciate you, Vaughn. Thank you. If not, make sure to follow everybody. Our ats are down below, and there will be links to the Champ League Show at that point. Taco, Vaudible, and myself will be on a regular basis. We will love to have Pyro back as another guest spot. But that is pretty much everything that we have got for this week. We appreciate you guys tuning in here to the CCA channel. We appreciate you and all of the support you have shown on the Champ League Show, and we will see you guys next week when we have all of our teams qualified for CRL.